it might take your breath away. Millions are within the path of totality, so whether you'll be beneath the moon's shadow or experiencing this remarkable event with us at CBC, we've got you covered. So strap in as we bring you a full day of special live coverage of the eclipse in Canada. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox, and we are live with you today with special coverage from Niagara Falls. Could I have a better backdrop? This place is already home to one of the natural wonders of the world. So what is the perfect backdrop to experience another natural wonder, a total solar eclipse? It's an event so rare. There hasn't been one on Canadian soil since 1979, and we won't see one again until 2044. All of Canada will get to witness at least a partial solar eclipse this afternoon, and if the weather cooperates, and if you're lucky enough to be in the path of totality, you will be in for the show of a lifetime. Let me show you what's going to happen today. Our first glimpse of totality here in Canada will be just after 3 p.m. Eastern, and we have reporters all along the path. So we invite you to experience it with us. It's going to go by so quickly, we're going to make the most of every moment. Niagara Falls is a real focal point for us today, and it's a gathering point for what we expect will be hundreds of thousands of people. The expectations for a certain point in Niagara Falls were as many as 1 million people. They've scaled that back just in the last 24 hours or so, but they still are expecting more than 150,000, maybe 300,000, maybe more. They really don't have an idea. But the reason why the number 150,000 stands in my head is because the last time they had that many people at one event was when Nick Wallenda walked on his tightrope across from the American side to the Canadian side. They had 150,000 people, and that was the largest single crowd for an event here in Niagara Falls. They do expect to shatter that record today. We have a great cast of people who are going to be bringing you reporting on this total solar eclipse, this rare, spectacular phenomenon that we're going to celebrate today and experience together. You might call it a stellar cast, the first of many puns I expect to deliver today. I'm looking over here because Ryan Marciniak is back. You met him on Friday. He's with Astronomy in Action. Welcome.
Happy E-Day. To be here. It's the culmination of many years of preparation and excitement.
And it's here, so you're feeling it, all this pent-up excitement and eclipse.
I didn't sleep very much, but I'm okay with that. I'm reveling in the enjoyment of the experience today.
I'm going to be sharing a lot of time with Ryan today, and I'm looking forward to it. Number one, just give everyone an idea of what's in store for us today, Ryan.
Well, let's assume the weather's clear first of all, and then we'll go from there.
It's a bit of a break. It's not a solid cloud level here.
We'll see the sun, and that'll encourage people to come out and at least experience the energy of the area. But basically, around 2:04 p.m., we're going to get first contact, where the moon will start to cover up the sun just a little bit. Now, for us, that's not going to change at all. We're not going to notice any difference in the sun. We're not going to feel anything different, but we can use our eclipse glasses to look at the sun at that point and see, like, as if a giant has taken a bite out of it a little bit. And then about an hour later, things will start to change very rapidly as the sun becomes a crescent. And then totality at 3:18 p.m., the moon will completely cover the sun. The sun will disappear in your eclipse glasses, and that's when it's safe to take it off and look.
So that's the whole thing, and that's what we're experiencing here. Those are the times for Niagara Falls.
Correct.
Of course, they vary along the path of totality.
Absolutely.
But it is this rare and spectacular phenomenon, and it's something that you've actually experienced before.
Yes.
So there are many who won't. I was mentioning as we went on the air, we haven't had a total solar eclipse in Canada since 1979. So apart from what's going to happen, tell us a little bit about what you might experience and what is going to change here on Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for anybody, whether you're in the path of totality or just outside, it's still going to be a little bit dark, as if somebody has dimmed the lights, except in this case, the lights are the sun, right? So it's going to feel a little bit weird, the quality of light. And if you are in the path of totality, wherever you are, it'll start to get darker. Animals will start to react in a weird way. You know, birds will stop chirping. Crickets might start chirping. All these amazing things are going to happen. And we might see some very strange shadows on the ground as well, right before totality.
These are all the things to watch for in this rare phenomenon. You've mentioned safety. I brought a pair for you.
Oh,
there you
thank
go.
you so much.
And I have my own pair. I have a special pair that my sister wanted to make sure I was really, I kind of look a bit new wave Devo going on here, but this is total blackout. And if you're watching us as we go on the air, this is what you absolutely have to have today, because there are about 6 million Canadians in the path of totality, but the rest of the country is going to experience a partial eclipse. That's when these are absolutely essential at all times. So you're going to see us in these a lot all through the morning. Thanks for the first conversation. I'll see you in just a few minutes. You brought your telescopes. We're going to have a lot of show and tell. I'm really looking forward to it. Ryan Marciniak, who's sharing something that we haven't experienced here for 45 years, and obviously the eclipse mania is strong. Now, I want to bring in somebody who is absolutely critical to our program every single day. But I don't know, Chris. I think that you are absolutely more vital than ever to us today, because as I was coming on the air, you saw me with my fingers crossed. I think we're going to Chris. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry. Stand by, Chris. I was giving Chris the big mention, but Chris is coming up in just a second. The weather is questionable for today. It is cloudy. Yesterday, though, as you're going to see, it was magnificent. Sunshine, and the crowds were out by the thousands. They sometimes were gathered where I am now to meet someone very special. NASA is making a big point of this eclipse. NASA has special public events. NASA is running some very special experiments that we're going to be talking about today, and has invited some special guests to sort of be the public face of all that's happening, really trying to drum up interest in the eclipse and in space in general. Someone who's very well known to us, and that is Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen. I spoke to him yesterday. So Jeremy, I'm so happy to see you again, and I'm so happy you were able to find time in your very packed schedule here in Niagara Falls.
I will always make time for you, trust
Thank
me.
you.
Pleasure's mine.
What are you doing for the eclipse here?
Oh, it's super special. They brought me up here to just take it in and observe it myself, and a chance for me to connect with communities both on the Canadian, US side, sharing about science, and then on Monday I'm going to watch it and I'm going to love it.
Well, I'm wondering, as you have these first conversations, as people get ready, you get some feedback from the people to whom you're speaking, what's your sense of the level of anticipation and excitement about this?
Yeah, it's pretty high. It's been my experience. People are really excited about it. I've met some crowds, and now I ask, who's seen one before? And there won't be a lot, but there will be some people that are they will travel anywhere to see it again. So it gives you the sense it's worthwhile, because people that have had it before, they want it again. They want to experience it.
What about you? Have
you? First time. What about you?
You never have experienced a total solar eclipse?
No.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
What do you think we're in for on Monday?
It sounds cool. I mean, obviously it would be neat to observe the sun with the moon blocking it. We'll be able to see the edges of the sun. They call it the corona, which is like the atmosphere of the sun. So that'll be unique to be able to see that. But I'm also really interested to see how the landscape changes, the colors. People talk about seeing different, almost like light moving across the ground, and the colors change, the animal behavior changes. I don't know, I'm just going to try and take it all in.
What kind of effect do you think it's going to have on you? Some people really feel transformed by the experience.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, you have to ask me after.
After we'll have a talk.
I don't want to set expectations too high and let myself down.
Maybe you'll become an eclipse chaser at the end of this
I might,
too.
yeah, absolutely.
So, Jeremy, you can see what a beautiful day it was yesterday. If only it was today for the eclipse, but hopefully things will clear, and we're going to find out all about that. Jeremy's going to join us. A little bit more of that interview coming up later in the morning. I mentioned the NASA experiments. He's a former jet fighter pilot, so he's very interested in some of the things that NASA are doing today, the experiments they're flying, and we'll talk about that. And again, with a view toward really drumming up interest in space as he gets set to take part in the Artemis 2 mission. But let's bring it right back to weather, because that is the key question for today. Is it going to be clear? Is it going to be cloudy? There's my friend Chris. I was giving you the intro earlier. If ever your information has been more important to us, it is today. I'm thinking about people getting up, Chris, setting out, wondering, do they go? Where do they go? They want to have the best clear view of the eclipse. You take us through the path of totality. Okay. know what? I think this is a Friday the 13th. Do you know maybe it's a coronal mass ejection that's throwing off all sorts of solar flares and energy and interfering with our communications, because we don't ever have this many technical problems. But what the heck, we'll get them all worked out. Marianne, please tell me that you're working fine and I can go back to you with other news. There you are in the studio. I'm going to thank goodness you're my backstop for today. We're going to reset here. We'll be back with more from our live coverage of Niagara Falls. In the meantime, what else is happening in the world today, Marianne?
Yes, Heather, while you're enjoying the energy of that path of totality and feeling the energy that you will definitely feel in Niagara Falls, we are keeping an eye on many big stories today, and let's get right into it. One of the stories we're watching is in Israel. It has withdrawn nearly all of its ground forces from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. It is estimated that nearly all of the buildings in the city were destroyed or damaged during the 6 months of intense fighting there. The Israeli military says the pulled troops will be deployed to new battlefronts, particularly in and around the city of Rafah. The UN's atomic watchdog has warned that a recent attack on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant has raised the risk of a major nuclear disaster. Russia accused Ukraine of launching a drone strike on the facility Sunday. 3 people were injured in the attack. Ukraine has denied its involvement. Russia has controlled the Zaporizhzhia plant since the early stages of the war. The public inquiry into foreign interference in Canadian elections will hear from the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor today. Natalie Drouin will begin her testimony this morning. Vincent Rigby, who held the post from 2020 to 2021, will testify this afternoon. The Prime Minister himself, Justin Trudeau, is set to address the inquiry on Wednesday. So that is what we are keeping an eye on, the major news stories on this Monday. Heather, I want to send it back to you because I know that you are really feeling the pulse, that energy in Niagara Falls this morning.
You know, I think I said yesterday, Marianne, that Niagara Falls is giving off enough energy for a coronal mass ejection of its own. Everybody is really excited about what's to come, even if it's not fully clear sky, but we are still hopeful that we'll get a very good view of something we haven't experienced in a very long time. So thanks, Marianne. I'll be back to you through the morning, of course, keeping watch on all of the other stories going on this Monday, April the 8th. But again, to remind you, let's keep an eye. It is really all about totality today. We have reporters, we have guests who are getting up, who are getting ready to watch history unfold all across North America today. There, as you see, it comes in. Peely Island is the first location for Canada in southwestern Ontario. It moves through Ontario into Quebec, through to New Brunswick, right down the center line of New Brunswick. It touches the western part of PEI, touches part of Nova Scotia, and leaves the continent off Newfoundland later this afternoon. I'm with you this morning and then back again this afternoon for special coverage beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern. Andrew Nichols will be joining me live. He's going to be on the roof of the CBC building in Toronto, and he'll be experiencing what the vast majority of Canada is, and that's a partial solar eclipse, 99% coverage in Toronto. Wherever you are, though, you can experience this eclipse with us here on CBC News, and we hope you will today. Let me give you the view here behind me of Niagara Falls as it is, all lit up for us today. Will the eclipse change the color of the light of the falls? That's one of the big questions I have. Will it turn pink? We'll find out later on this afternoon. One of the natural wonders of the world, and that's where we are today to experience another natural wonder. Looking forward to sharing it with you here on CBC Morning Live.
First and foremost, we don't stand and stare at the sun with the naked eye. That's number one.
You can't look at the partial solar eclipse without solar eclipse glasses to safely view it. Certified solar eclipse glasses.
The name and address of the manufacturer has to be shown, as well as the identification of the testing laboratory.
If you should be looking at the sun, it's probably not that great for your camera either, and it is the case.
To take a picture, you can just cover the lens on your phone and use the eclipse glasses to photograph it like this. You can actually get a decent picture this way.
Our location for today, the total solar eclipse in Niagara Falls, is our focal point, a real center of gravity for our coverage. Let's just linger on these falls for a moment because it's going to be the backdrop so often for hours of coverage. They are spectacular. They are the second largest falls in the world after Victoria Falls in South Africa, of course. But boy, that water moves fast. 168,000 meters per second. Falling from the height of 800 meters across and 60 meters high. Just beautiful. And these are the Canadian falls, of course. Niagara Falls has three. Has the American side, has the Bridal Veil Falls. It all puts the most spectacular location together and draws millions of people. Of course, today we're expecting hundreds of thousands of here, and we're going to meet as many of them as we possibly can with the help of our reporters today. But yesterday, at this very location, as you just heard, Jeremy Hansen was here, the Canadian astronaut. It is almost exactly 15 years ago, it's unbelievable, but he was named, along with David Saint-Jacques, as Canada's astronaut. And now we know that he's going to become, no earlier next year, but maybe as early as next year, the very first Canadian to travel around the moon and back as part of the Artemis II mission. So Jeremy was here, gave me some time. It's always wonderful to reconnect to him. And we talked about what this day means for science, because NASA is so very much involved. NASA has very interesting experiments to come. NASA is very interested in boosting the interest in space for now and for Jeremy's mission to the moon and beyond. And of course, we're also wondering about what the astronauts will see from the International Space Station 400 kilometers out. So that's where we begin this part of the conversation. Here's Jeremy Hansen. Fellow astronauts, there are 7 of them who'll be viewing the eclipse from 400 kilometers up in the International Space Station. They must be getting a spectacular view.
So it'll be neat to hear what they see from their perspective, because the best windows on the space station actually look down on the Earth. And so they will be able to see the shadow of the moon moving across the Earth. I think that'll be a really unique perspective. And so I don't think they're going to be looking at the sun like we are with our glasses. I think they're actually going to be transfixed on the planet and what that looks like as they pass over it.
There must be so many extraordinary moments from the ISS, but this would have to be extra special. And I was thinking how many advances in technology and imaging since 2017, the last American eclipse. We might be getting some really spectacular images from them.
Yeah, we're always sending up the latest camera technology, and in fact, some new ones were just unpacked in the last few weeks, so absolutely might get some neat photos.
The other thing I'm wondering about, NASA is putting up some fascinating experiments this time for the eclipse. And are there any that are of particular interest to you?
Well, one of the things that I thought was cool is that we have this special airplane in Houston where we fly the T-38 jets for our training. They're WB-57s. They can fly really, really high and carry payloads, and they have special cameras that they're going to be looking at the sun and chasing it as long as they can, staying in that total eclipse. They have some sounding rockets, so these are rockets you launch. I think they're launching out of Virginia, and they're going to go up just before eclipse, during, and after to see how the Earth's ionosphere changes. That's kind of the atmosphere around our planet. So there's some really cool things that they can do.
I knew you were going to say the WB-57s because as a fighter pilot yourself, I thought that would be particularly interesting to fly that high and to do those research experiments. We were talking earlier about how there seems to be a really great level of interest in this eclipse in particular, but do you think it's an opportunity to foster an interest in space and astronomy in general right now?
Yes, absolutely, and science. Just this understanding that science serves us as humanity. I like to kind of ponder, what are the people that saw this thousands of years ago, what were they thinking when they saw an eclipse like this? They wouldn't have understood what we understand today. And so science has brought us to this point where we understand how the planets are moving, how we're orbiting the sun, how the moon orbits the Earth. And I think that's really neat to look at how science has served us over this time period, and just embrace science as part of our future. I think as we eclipse 8 billion people, we really need science we all need to get on the same page if we're going to move forward as a unified humanity and tackle the big problems that face us on the planet.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's so great to see you again.
It's my pleasure.
Enjoy the eclipse.
I certainly will. You too.
Jeremy Hansen about to experience his very first total solar eclipse just across the falls in Niagara Falls, New York. That's where he's working with NASA today, but we're going to be playing highlights from our interview all through the morning. He mentioned a couple of important things, didn't he? He mentioned how would people have viewed the total solar eclipse years ago, and we know how that was historically in ancient cultures. It was often something that brought out a lot of fear and was seen as a bad omen. But of course, it also, from the very beginning, was a source of awe and wonder, and we fully expect to be experiencing that with you today and with our guests. 3:18 is the time in Niagara Falls for totality. I'll be experiencing that with you live, but that is later on down the road. Look at what the sun is providing for us right now. An absolutely beautiful sunrise. A little bit obscured by the mist, but nice rose, some cloud. This is a little bit better than we were expecting, I have to say. Obviously, it's cloudy, but it's not full cloud. Hopefully, we will get some breaks at those key moments. So this is where I'm going to be with this gorgeous backdrop behind me all day long. My plan is to stay right here and share things with you. But you know what I'd like to know? What's your plan for today? How are you going to be experiencing the eclipse? Where are you going to be watching it? With whom? We want to see the pictures, we want to hear the stories, we want to hear as well. Have you experienced one before, and what did you feel? Because we need to know what we're in store for. And look at this crowd here in this picture. Do you have your safety gear ready? Do you have your glasses? I'm going to be reminding that to you all morning long. It's Eclipse Day. Email us at morninglive@cbc.ca and let us know. Want to show you pictures of Mazatlan in Mexico. People there are going to be the first to experience the eclipse. Mazatlan was the second most booked Airbnb destination for this because the weather forecast is so good. Austin, Texas was #1, incidentally, but Mazatlan, very low chance of clouds. Look at the beautiful view on Sinaloa Beach. They're selling glow-in-the-dark t-shirts there in Mazatlan. This has attracted a number of Canadians. You met David Makepeace a couple of days ago on our program. He's there with 25 Canadians. Later today, as part of our special afternoon coverage, we're going to connect with some more Canadians who are there with all of their gear. They want to experience this from the beauty of Mexico. So that's going to be a fun part of our conversation today. I'm in Niagara Falls for today, which is on the path of totality. 3:18 is our moment, 3:18 p.m. Eastern. I'm just going to pause as you look at sunrise over the falls. If I pause, I think you'll be able to hear the cacophony of seagulls. So let me just pause, and hopefully it'll translate through my microphone. I think it probably is. All sorts of gulls. You know why I point that out? Because just before totality, things get very quiet. And those birds are going to, maybe, we're going to find out today, fall silent as the moon moves across the face of the sun and darkness descends. That will go silent. So that's really something I'll be watching today. Now, let's rectify the situation from earlier. We had a conversation with Katie Nicholson, but we did have some problems with our audio. But she was talking to some people who lined up hours ago. I mentioned there were going to be maybe hundreds of thousands of people here in Niagara Falls. People want to get a good seat, and Katie is meeting them.
All right, so this is one of the main parking lots. I'm not too far from you, Heather. This is around the power plant, and this is the main entrance where folks can come through, and there have been long lines of cars. We arrived here about an hour ago, and there were plates from Georgia, Texas, people lining up. These gates have just opened at 6 a.m., and I want to introduce you actually to a couple who drove pretty much 2 hours. Their alarm went off at 2 a.m. We're just going to come over here. This is Maxine Metzger. They were one of the first ones in line, and here's Gunther as well. We'll just hop in here. Maxine, hi. Hi, Gunther. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
So just tell us how this day started for you.
So we woke up at 2 and drove down here to Niagara Falls and arrived at the parking spot at 4:30, and we've been waiting here ever since. So now we're just waiting for the gate to actually work and let us in.
And so why was it so important for you two to come here today?
Well, today obviously is the eclipse, and we're really looking forward to seeing that today. Hopefully the weather works out. Whether it does or not, we're just going to enjoy the day and the crowds and make the best of the day.
No, we don't know if we're going to have a great view or not. I mean, all hopes are that we do get a bit of a clear sky, but what's going to happen if maybe we don't get the sort of the ultimate view that everybody was hoping to get from here? How are you going to feel?
Again, I'm here to have some fun and enjoy sights and sounds. I mean, I'm quite familiar with Niagara Falls, been here a lot, so I know that there's lots to see and do, and I'm going to enjoy that as much as I can.
Either way, it's going to be a great experience.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for chatting with us and for getting up at 2 a.m. to be here. Good luck. I hope this opens soon and you're able to get your parking spot. Yeah, enjoy the day. All right, so I mean, this is sort of the thing that's that you sort of get from people. It doesn't matter whether or not the sky puts on a show or not, whether we're able to see it. It's really about the experience of being here, sharing it, and just being in Niagara Falls. And you get that when you go throughout the entire region. We've been talking to restaurants, hotels, people in wineries. They've just been inundated with sort of eclipse tourists over the last weekend. They say this has been a big boom for them, particularly for April, right? It's almost like June and July crowds that they're seeing. And it's really been great, but also I think there's also going to be a fair bit of relief from some of the folks when this is finally over, because there's been so much buildup. And particularly for those who have been trying to plan public safety. So for the better part of 2 years, actually, police, emergency services management, they've been trying to come up with a plan. Because what happens if roughly 1 million people come here? How are you going to be able to plan for that? What are the emergency routes? That sort of thing.
Thank you so much, Katie. Looking forward to sharing today with Katie Nicholson. And Katie was mentioning the preparations in Niagara Falls. The mayor is going to join us as one of our guests later on this morning. I want to show you the scene here as people do begin to arrive and the sun comes up. We can get a live shot of somebody taking a picture or two. We're taking pictures of people taking pictures. Can you imagine how many pictures are going to be taken today of the total solar eclipse? There are about 44 million people in North America in the path of totality, and a couple of 100 million people outside of that in the penumbra, in the partial eclipse zone. We are going to see some incredible pictures today. Don't forget to protect your camera with those solar filters, but we're really looking forward to seeing the pictures that you are getting. We're in Niagara Falls today for total solar eclipse in Canada. Thanks for joining us. We'll take a quick break and continue with special coverage on CBC Morning Live. Not all of it. Montreal North, Laval, I'm sorry, it's partial solar eclipse for you, but to the north, it is a total solar eclipse in Montreal for the first time since 1932. And they have all sorts of special plans in place for the city of Montreal, tremendous excitement and special guests, one of whom is my special guest. I want to say good morning to Laurie Rousseau-Nepton. She's an astronomer at the Dunlop Institute for Astronomy and Astrophysics at the University of Toronto. She is, we must note, the first Indigenous woman in Canada to get a PhD in astrophysics, the first Innu astrophysicist in the country, which makes it an extra privilege to have you with us. She's in Montreal today ahead of the big day. Good morning, Laurie, and welcome to our program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
What's your level of excitement about Eclipse Day, Laurie?
Oh, it's super high. I just got up this morning knowing it was a special day, and I think like everybody here that will be there to watch this magnificent show, it's going to be for the first time, and I can't wait to see what I heard about.
So you've never seen one yourself, even as an astrophysicist, you have never had the experience of a total solar eclipse. What are you expecting then?
I'm just expecting something unbelievable, not imaginable, something that you can write about, but something that you have to see.
I think that's right, and it could be quite a profound emotional experience for you in a couple of ways. Just in terms of the wonder, the awe of the universe and the cosmos as an astrophysicist. So let me ask you about that first of all. There is going to be so much science done today. What do you think we're going to learn, and what are you most interested in from a scientific point of view today?
Well, it's the occasion for millions of people to see for the first time the solar corona. It's the atmosphere of our sun. Currently, it's really active, so I can't wait to see what kind of display we will have. But also, during that moment, we'll see also the glow on the moon. And it's a special glow. It's the glow that first bounced on the Earth and then go back to the moon before going back to us. So it's a reflection of ourselves. And that is also very interesting to look at.
So I think so, just in terms of seeing what we can't see normally because of the brightness of the sun, when we get more of a picture of what's happening with the corona and the chromosphere and all the things with which you work on a daily basis. No wonder you're excited about that. I can't help but notice your t-shirt as well, so let's move to that. My ancestors were astronomers. I know that you've been spending quite a bit of time researching the Innu oral traditions when it comes to astronomy. Tell me a little bit about your journey and your learning.
Yeah, it's now a passion for me, and it started also with a total solar eclipse. It was the one in 2017. I was in Hawaii, so I only got to see a partial eclipse then, but a friend of mine asked me if I knew about my community perspective on solar eclipses. And back then I didn't know, and I felt like it was something missing because I'm an astronomer and I'm Innu, and I should know those things. And unfortunately, I didn't hear those stories at that time. And so I started researching them. And what I found was just a marvel of information. And I started this journey into finding astronomy and physics in the oral tradition.
So you have learned a lot, and I would like you to teach me and us a little bit. There is an Innu hero named, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Sakapesh. Can you tell us about him?
Yes. So there's a very special story about Sakapesh and solar eclipses. So Sakapesh is a hero that was born a long, long time ago. He has special power, but in those days, he's very young. His parents were killed, unfortunately, by probably a mammoth or some kind of animal from prehistoric era. And he's with his sister, and he's learning to hunt. And he goes with bow and arrow, and he traps as well. And he always feels like something is watching over him, following him, and he decides to trap it. His sister helped him fashion a snare, and he put it on a path where the snow had melted. And the next day, the sun doesn't come up. It's darkness everywhere. Animals are scared, and Sakapesh knows he caught the sun. So they go there, and everybody try to help him because it's too hot. They can't release the sun. But eventually, a little mouse that was in those days very, very large, like as large as a mountain, came close and chewed the snare to release the sun. And that's a story related to solar eclipses because Sakapesh is the man on the moon Sakapesh, who catches the sun with a snare. And the snare is that ring of light we see around the moon during the solar eclipses.
Laurie, thank you so very much. We are going to learn so much today, and that is an important part of the story to keep in mind, the wonderful oral storytelling tradition, and thank you for that. I wish I were in Parc Jean Drapeau today in Montreal to hear your presentation. You're going to be a part of the program. Enjoy that, enjoy the people with you, and enjoy your very first total solar eclipse. Laurie from Montreal today. Our special coverage continues here on CBC Morning Live. We are live in Niagara Falls. Good morning on Eclipse Day. eclipse today. All of the country is going to see a partial solar eclipse. Very few but very lucky people are going to be in the path of totality, like my friend Ryan Marciniak with Astronomy in Action. We were here on the weekend. Ryan has a great big inflatable portable planetarium. And it was, the lines were stretching. People were wanting to see your presentation because I bet they wanted to find out about your telescopes.
Totally.
When you, at 3:18, totality here, you're going to have that directed on the sun. Tell me about them.
Well, the good thing about this particular telescope, first of all, it's really small, which is great for the sun because the sun's quite large compared to other things you look at in space. But this has a special filter on it
already.
That is exactly, yes, it's the same material as your solar eclipse glasses. And so I can actually use this to look at the sun before totality, during the partial eclipse, and see gradually the bite out of the sun. But then when totality happens, I can actually take that off and capture photographs.
Okay.
I wouldn't look.
Show that. There we are. So there we are right there with your, okay, so that is it. Now, what is this one here?
Oh yeah, so
because you have two.
So that first telescope blocks out everything but 1/10,000th of the sun's light.
Okay.
This telescope is a special filter that looks for the red part of light coming from the sun. Very, very tiny amount of light in the red part of the spectrum. We call it H alpha. And that shows a lot of beautiful features on the sun, like those solar prominences, sunspots, the graininess of the sun's plasma undulating.
This is made specifically for
the sun.
eclipse.
You can't use this to look at anything else other than the sun.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So why don't you, since we're talking about what you're going to be using to observe things, for those of us who don't have that specialized equipment, think about all the cameras that are going to be directed at the sun. The important thing is to have a filter like that on a camera, isn't it?
Yeah, before totality, for sure. If you're in the path of totality, you can use your camera normally on your phone during those few minutes. But for everybody else in the country, you're going to want to put those eclipse glasses in front of your phone camera to protect it as well, just like your eyes.
Well, we were looking last week at some pretty incredible video on social media of someone who did that experiment. You know, it concentrates all the sun rays, burns right through the camera, burns it down. So imagine if that were your eyes. I mean, obviously it gives you an idea about why it's so dangerous and why it's so important to protect. So one of the things I learned, and maybe is this a little trick that you would try too if you have a phone?
Yeah,
everybody's going to be trying to take cell phone images. You can actually either hold this, but I think tape it might be more.
I think that'd be easier.
Yes.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that people think about, oh, maybe I can put on dark sunglasses and be okay.
Right.
There's light that we can't see from the sun that doesn't cause our blink response. Ultraviolet, infrared, things that we don't see that damage our eyes. Those glasses will help you with all of that.
All right, safety first. That's our motto for today. Come back. I have more questions for you, and you have all the answers. Ryan Marciniak, thank you. Our special guest today in Niagara Falls. A new warning about the potential for a nuclear disaster at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant.
The International Atomic Energy Agency issued the warning after a drone strike on the facility on Sunday. Russia accused Ukraine of launching the attack, which left 3 people injured. Ukraine has denied its involvement. The Zaporizhzhia plant, which is the largest nuclear facility in Europe, has been in Russian hands since the opening stage of the war.
Perfection with a touch of sweet redemption.
The University of South Carolina has won the women's NCAA basketball title to wrap up an undefeated season. The Gamecocks beat Iowa 87-75 Sunday to claim the championship. This was the final college game for Iowa superstar Caitlin Clark. Tonight, the men play their final. Toronto's Zach Edey will lead the Purdue Boilermakers against the Connecticut Huskies. Tip-off is just after 9 p.m. Eastern. Stay with us for all of the latest developments right here on CBC News Network. All right, Chris is back with your weather. I know everyone's got these. This is the accessory of the day, these eclipse glasses, Chris.
Indeed.
And we're all waiting to find out from you whether we'll even be able to see it today.
Yeah, no kidding, right, Marianne? Well, you know, the good news is most of the country should experience at least a partial eclipse, weather dependent, but there will be a sliver of totality for the lucky few. So let's talk about, we'll focus in on that. We do have a low pressure in the Atlantic, one in the upper Midwest, and that is the key cloud cover right there. Now, the clouds will be clearing out in southwestern Ontario, so your forecast has improved. Let's take a look there through 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. We're calling mainly cloudy and around the Golden Horseshoe with sunny breaks, so it's not a write-off, but it's not just optimal viewing, not like the skies over the weekend. Kingston, Cornwall, probably hanging around for mostly cloudy with a chance of sunny breaks. Now, a lot of people are asking, where is this path of totality? If you are in Toronto, you're not in it. If you get down to downtown Oakville, through Burlington, Hamilton, and across the Niagara region, you are in that. Similarly, into Quebec as well. Now, we're showing you here, there's that path of totality in that shaded area. Now, we're showing you all these dark moons here. Even if you're not in the path of totality, as long as the skies are clearing, and we can see that it's pretty good clear. We have some increasing clouds starting to hint towards Montreal, but I don't think that will be enough to, you know, ruin your view. If you are in Laval, you are not in the path of totality, 99.9%. But if you want 100%, you got to get down to downtown Montreal, which I'm sure is going to be pretty packed today. Okay, then we get to Atlantic Canada. We've been dealing with snow in St. John's, the Avalon. It's cold temperatures as well. But the Maritimes, you are lucking out by the looks of things. You should see mainly clear skies. Any cloud cover you do have should not ruin your view. And as a result, we've got you in some of the prime viewing places. Temperature-wise, mild, except for Newfoundland, where it's going to be chilly. And elsewhere in the country, across the western prairies, good viewing. BC, though, rain showers.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime profound event that you want to be a part of.
For the eclipse to come to us this is our one and only chance.
What is it about a total solar eclipse that has captivated humanity, that inspires awe, fear, and wonder?
You cannot prepare yourself for how intensely cosmic it is.
The moment the sky darkens and the sun's brilliance is extinguished, just for a moment by the moon's shadow. For some, a time for reverence and reflection.
It's really a miracle of our universe.
To witness, it might take your breath away. Millions are within the path of totality, so whether you'll be beneath the moon's shadow or experiencing this remarkable event with us at CBC, we've got you covered. So strap in as we bring you a full day of special live coverage of the eclipse in Canada. Good morning and welcome to special coverage here on CBC Morning Live from Niagara Falls today. That's my location for the next 3 hours, and then again later on this afternoon for special coverage of the eclipse in Canada. And this is something that is going to bring us together as a country in a way we haven't experienced for decades. The last solar eclipse in this country, 1979. The next one, 2044. We have to make the most of every single moment today, and we will, with special guests and reporters all along the path of totality. I want to be clear, almost all of the country is going to celebrate something very special today. Partial solar eclipse almost everywhere in Canada, but really, on a day like today, it is all about totality and the millions of people who are going to experience it all the way across as it tracks coming in. Peely Island, the southernmost point of Canada, is going to be the very first to experience it, and then through southwestern Ontario on pretty much down the 401 route into Quebec, dividing Montreal right in half, sorry if you're in the north, on into New Brunswick, part of Nova Scotia, the western part of Prince Edward Island, and then it's going to say goodbye to Canada and goodbye to the continent from Newfoundland and Labrador. And we're going to be talking to people from all along that path over the course of our special coverage today. Now, Niagara Falls, that's my location. It's also turning out to be the real center of gravity for potentially hundreds of thousands of people today. I want to bring in Katie Nicholson, who's going to be sharing the coverage with me. And Katie, I want to say, number one, I have to say, thank you for this. Let me hold this up nice and high. This is the Eclipse donut that Katie got me from stopping in at a coffee shop earlier today. Katie has been really catching the feeling here in Niagara Falls. She's been to places with special Eclipse cocktail menus, Eclipse donuts. She's really got the flavor. So why don't you tell me what you're seeing and hearing from people who are already here, Katie? Tell us the stories.
So Heather, so many people who probably would like to have some of those donuts right now. A lot of alarms went off really early this morning. One couple, their alarm went off at 2 a.m. They drove in from Elmira, Ontario. They were lined up to try to get into one of the main parking areas. I talked to people who flew in from San Francisco to be here, and I have done this drive, and so that's why I was really impressed by this group that I want to introduce you to. Where'd y'all come from?
We came from middle of Manitoba. We left Friday afternoon and drove like crazy all the way to get here.
So Rennie, you are a bit of a backyard astronomer. Why is it you really want it to be here? That 3 hour, that is a long drive, and it can be pretty monotonous.
Well, this will be my second total solar eclipse. And yeah, this is where you want to be. You can always see the partials, but they're just not the same as that total solar when you can see the corona.
And you convinced all of these folks to come with you as well.
I did.
All right. So Jennifer, why you came from Winnipeg, Jennifer Weeb. Why did you decide to go along with everybody?
Well, I did bring my son with me. I wanted him to experience it. I had experienced it already in 1979 in school. I was in grade school then, and so I just wanted him and I to have that experience like I did. So, and like Rennie said, it's a once in a lifetime kind of a thing.
And you guys have staked out a spot in sort of, so those who go to Winnipeg Folk Festival know you put a tarp down. That is your spot. And you picked out a spot that you think is going to have the best view because you brought a telescope as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so where is that spot? You want to point that out to us where you think the best view?
Is right over in that direction, over by the hydro substation or power station, up against a fence, few trees around us, and let's hope that the sky stays reasonably clear and we can see the eclipse and without clouds in our way.
Thank you, Margaret. All right. And so I hope you guys do get to have a great view. We still don't know. How are you going to feel if it's a little overcast?
Well, we'll be disappointed, obviously. However, you can't control Mother Nature. You just gotta, deal with it. If it's light clouds, you can still see through, especially with the eclipse glasses. So we'll just make the best of it.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for chatting with me and good luck. And so, Heather, just so you know, there's lots of spaces just like that now being taken out. People are starting to come in with their coolers. They've got all of their provisions, their blankets, their chairs. People are setting in for the long haul, what may with the weather today. We still don't know exactly what kind of a view we're going to get. And people really don't know how I guess, what to prepare for. That's sort of what the public safety folks have been planning for about 2 years.
I like that attitude. Que sera, sera. We're going to make the most of it, whatever the cloud cover is today, Katie. And I'm looking forward to you speaking to more of the people who are here because behind me I can see the line just close to the line of the falls already starting to fill in. So I'm looking forward to those stories to come. But you mentioned, you've been talking in the days to come about how many people may end up here at Niagara Falls. I mean, for a while they were thinking maybe as a million, maybe as many as 1 million. Obviously the largest crowd here in a single day. But it's not just Niagara Falls. Any community that's in the path of totality, this is going to represent a major infrastructure challenge, logistical challenge with all of this sudden influx of visitors. How have officials been preparing?
There have been plans going in for about 2 years, right, between Orange and all of the levels of police, OPP, the Niagara Police, the Parks Police. So they have set in motion what they say is a comprehensive plan. They've got plans for road closures, just pedestrianizing certain areas. We were out this morning as they were closing down Clifton Hill. That also sort of stands for some of the more rural routes throughout, like Niagara-on-the-Lake, that sort of thing. This is the big problem, right? If you're coming from the GTA, there's really only one route down to the Niagara region, one route out. The big fear here is that if there's a couple of car crashes or so much traffic, anyone who's ever tried to go from Toronto in the height of summer to the Niagara region, say for a wedding, has really had to do a lot of logistics to figure out how long that traffic pileup is going to be. And that is the fear here, that people could be stuck. So really part of the thing that police have also been doing is telling people, be prepared. If you come, there may be delays. Bring with you medication, bring with you food, provisions. Plan ahead and make sure that you have everything you need with you in the vehicle, or try to take GO trains. There have been extra GO trains that have been added so that people can come from the GTA and other regions to Niagara and take this in here. So that's all part of that public safety planning. And we know Orange, the emergency helicopter service, they have added an extra staging area in this region just in case. So if you can't get on the roads, at least they'll be able to get somebody who might need emergency care out by air. So the other thing they've done is they've beefed up all this area where we are now. It'll be sort of pedestrianized. They've already sort of really stemmed the flow of traffic. And there are going to be paramedics on bikes. There's extra police all around. And they're also encouraging folks, if you're coming here with your family, take a picture early on. Just in case people get separated, you have a picture of what everybody looks like, particularly young children. And make sure that you plan ahead and with your children. If you do get separated, make a point of saying this is the place where you should go if we get separated. So just some planning for families who might be intending to come here, just to get ahead of any issues that might crop up.
Katie, thank you very much. We'll talk more about that with you through the morning. We have the mayor of Niagara Falls going to join me here in just a few minutes to continue on the preparation and the plan. And I noticed driving in, exactly as to Katie's point, along the highway coming into Niagara Falls yesterday, big signs, plan ahead, expect delays. Given the crowd, we don't know exactly how many are going to be here in Niagara Falls, but I do know that I have one very special guest. Ryan Marciniak's back, Astronomy in Action, my buddy today for Eclipse Day. I was thinking, one of the great lines I read from a NASA scientist is a solar eclipse, total solar eclipse, is a dance with three partners, the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. Give us an Astronomy 101 primer here. What happens during a total solar eclipse?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's my favorite word in the English language, is syzygy. S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y, all three bodies aligning in the solar system. Now, it works because the moon and the sun, although they're not the same size, the moon is 400 times narrower than the sun, but also 400 times closer. And it's that cosmic coincidence that allows the moon to completely cover up the sun while still preserving the beautiful corona and solar prominences that come off of the sun. Now, that's one piece. The second piece is that if the sun and the moon were always aligned in their orbits, we would get a solar eclipse every time there's a new moon. But because the tilt of the moon's orbit is about 5 degrees, usually when the new moon happens at the start of the month, the moon will pass above or below the sun. So you need that second coincidence of them lining up perfectly, and that usually happens once every 18 months. And then finally, you have to hope that it's over land. Earth is 70% oceans, and so we need that beautiful eclipse.
That's right. Even though they're happening once every 18 months, most times on the ocean, so we don't even know. When we talk about rarity, I think the number is 375 years on average for a total solar eclipse over the same spot of land. Indeed. It's most unusual, and part of the reason why we're celebrating it today. Listen, thank you for everything. You're going to take a little break and look after some other duties. You're going to send another of your colleagues to join me?
Absolutely. Daniel is smart. He's a wonderful speaker. You're going to love him.
I'm going to love him too, but I have enjoyed my time. Come on back later today and we'll have more conversations. Astronomy in Action, a big part of the puzzle here. Thank you very much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. Now, I think I have Chris Murphy. Can you hear me now, and can I hear you, Chris?
I hear you loud and clear,
oh,
Heather.
Excellent. I said I think there was some big solar flare or something going on with the ionosphere last hour that we couldn't, with those charged particles were interfering with us. You know, can you see the backdrop? It's beautiful, isn't it?
Totally.
But can you see what's blowing in? I am the new Maid of the Mist, I'm telling you. That's my new title today, because it's blowing in from the falls, Chris. It is spectacular, but I'm dealing with the weather all through today, and that's going to be fine. The big thing that I want to know about, of course, is the cloud cover, and it's actually a little more dense this hour than last. We're going to be relying on you so much, Chris, to walk us through what's happening at totality, so give us the forecast.
Indeed. And by the way, the last solar eclipse of note last year, you saw the path there went from the Pacific Ocean down towards the Gulf of Mexico. This year, it's almost the complete opposite, stretching from Mexico and southern Texas there all the way up to the East Coast. That's the path of totality. So most of Canada should experience at least a partial eclipse, but the further away you are from that, so Vancouver, well, you've got clouds and rain today, but if it was a completely clear sky, about 28% of the sun would be covered by the moon. Now, you get further east towards Winnipeg, that's up to 62%. Toronto, by the way, 99%, but it's not 100, and it makes a difference, that last 1%. Forecast today, pretty mild for much of the country, a little cool on the west coast with the rain showers, and certainly cool in St. John's with some snow in your forecast and towards portions of Labrador. But we do have two low pressure systems, one in the Atlantic bringing the clouds to parts of Newfoundland, and the second one in around Minnesota, and that's spreading some cloud towards southern Manitoba all the way over towards southern Ontario. Heard Heather talk about the clouds thickening up a little bit, so I'm going to show you a timeline through here, and as we get, you'll see clearing in Windsor and London and down towards the shores of Lake Erie, so, you know, Port Stanley down towards Point Pelee Island. You will see mainly cloudy, but there could be some sunny breaks getting in towards western areas of Lake Ontario. So it's not a write-off by any stretch. The max peak of the eclipse in Niagara Falls is about 3:20 p.m. But of course, the whole event is over 2 hours. You get in towards Montreal, and the big show's around 3:30. But anywhere from 2:15 to 4:30, you can expect certainly the moon coming in and then the moon going out.
Chris, thank you very much. And by the way, Chris, I'm saving.
Yes.
I am saving. Can you see this? One of my Eclipse donuts.
Oh,
I'm saving
good.
it for you.
I haven't had breakfast yet, Heather.
Okay, well, all right, I'll bring it. It's pretty tasty. Trust me, I've been sampling. All right, thank you very much, Chris. We're going to leave Niagara Falls for just a moment. I want to send you back to Toronto and Marianne Demain, who has the other stories making news on this Monday morning. Hello, Mary. I'll bring you a donut too, Marianne. How about that?
Thank you. I'll even take them day old, Heather. Thanks so much.
Okay. What's happening elsewhere in the news?
Yes, keeping eyes on a lot of other stories, including in Israel this morning. Israel has withdrawn nearly all of its ground forces from Han Yunis in southern Gaza. It is estimated that nearly all of the buildings in the city were destroyed or damaged during the 6 months of intense fighting there. The Israeli military says the pulled troops will be deployed to new battlefronts, particularly in and around the city of Rafah. The UN's atomic watchdog has warned that a recent attack on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant has raised the risk of a major nuclear disaster. Russia accused Ukraine of launching a drone strike on the facility on Sunday. 3 people were injured in the attack. Ukraine has denied its involvement. Russia has controlled the Zaporizhzhia plant since the early stages of the war. The public inquiry into foreign interference in Canadian elections will hear from the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor today. Natalie Drouin will begin her testimony this morning. Vincent Rigby, who held the post from 2020 to 2021, will testify this afternoon. The Prime Minister himself, Justin Trudeau, is set to address the inquiry on Wednesday. Those are the other stories making news this Monday, but I'll send it back to Heather, who is there in Niagara with that beautiful backdrop of the falls. Of course, Heather, one of the millions you are now who are going to be watching the celestial event in that path of totality.
You know, more Canadians will see this eclipse, Marianne, than any other eclipse at any other point in history. That's kind of a thing to ponder, this real collective experience we're going to have today. Thank you very much. Our coverage, we have reporters, we have guests planned for you all along the path of totality as history unfolds, not just in Canada, but all across North America. It's the first time this century that the eclipse is going to cover Mexico, the United States, and Canada. I'm with you this morning, back again for special coverage this afternoon as of 1 p.m. Eastern. And Andrew Nichols will join me then live from the roof of the CBC building in Toronto with some special guests as well to give us the flavor of the partial eclipse, 99% coverage from Toronto today. We hope you'll come and experience the eclipse from wherever you are in Canada. Join us anywhere you get CBC News. And here is our question for you today. How and where are you experiencing the eclipse and with whom? Krista Brown in Miramichi, New Brunswick. You're going to experience totality, Krista, today. And she writes already today to tell us she'll be watching from her deck with her dog. The last time she saw an eclipse was 1970. It was one in 1970, one in 1972, and she was in grade 2 and she remembers, but the class wasn't allowed to open the curtains and look inside. A lot of people have similar memories. Thank you, Krista, for sharing yours. What are your plans? What are your memories? We want to hear them all today on this very special day. Morning Live at CBC.ca.
total solar eclipse, the same one we're going to be experiencing this year. That's right. One of the oldest democracies in the world that is still functioning today was ratified under the same path of totality that we are going to be observing on Monday. This will be the only time in our lifetimes that we'll get to celebrate this eclipse anniversary. There's a lot of buzz from Indigenous astronomers and in Haudenosaunee communities that this eclipse is going to help amplify the message of peace that we received so many years ago. Will you be in the path of totality?
That is Candace Maracle, one of our CBC Indigenous reporters, with a story that we're going to talk about in even more detail with a special guest here with me in Niagara Falls. Melanie Demers is with me, an astrophysicist, former instructor of Indigenous astronomy. She is a member of Mohawk Nation of Six Nations of the Grand River, part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Welcome, and welcome to Eclipse Day. I'm so glad to see you here. Thank you for coming. Candace was telling us the story of the Great Peace, and this is something that goes right back to 1142 and an eclipse. You have to share the beautiful story and the history. Could you give us some more detail about that?
Yeah, so the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, as you mentioned, was established about 1,000 years ago, and there were 5 nations originally that were at war. So that consisted of the Seneca, the Cayuga, the Onondaga, the Oneida, and the Mohawks, my nation as well. And they were at war for a very long time. And what happened was there was a warrior named Hiawatha, who met a prophet named the Peacemaker. And the Peacemaker actually went around to the leaders of these 5 nations at the time and was slowly convincing them over the course of a century to join the Great Peace. And there were 2 nations within that were a little bit hesitant to join originally. So the Onondaga Nation actually had a leader named Diodati, and that leader actually didn't want to join because he had very conflicted thoughts. He was a very powerful warlord and a little bit violent. So he didn't want to join, and they ended up kind of joining forces with a woman named Jugunsase, who successfully calmed the Onondaga leader Diodati's mind.
But the Seneca were looking for a sign in the sky, weren't they? And that came in the form of an eclipse.
Yes, so the Seneca were told by the Peacemaker that they would see a sign in the sky, and they didn't know what that would look like. And then the story goes that they saw a black sun. And the name for that is Diodati, which is the word for eclipse in Mohawk. So it happened under a total solar eclipse over 1,000 years ago.
And today, given that history, the Great Peace and the Confederacy, the creation really of the Haudenosaunee people, the people of the Longhouse, under an eclipse. So today then, does it have special resonance for you?
It definitely does. I would say that it's a time for reflection. It also represents our grandmother, the moon, joining the elder brother, the sun. So it's bringing together relatives in the sky and giving them that moment to come together. So some Haudenosaunee people are not observing the eclipse because they're actually giving them that time together. And other Haudenosaunee people are actually gathering at the place where all of the leaders joined.
The tree.
Yeah,
the tree of peace.
Yes.
They'll be gathering there. But on Six Nations, which is the largest of the reserves in Canada, the largest of all the populations, there must be some special events planned.
Yes, there's events planned with the Woodland Cultural Center. They're handing out eclipse glasses for everyone.
Good, safety first.
Right? So I think everybody will be looking up at the sky across Haudenosaunee territory today and across Canada as well.
And for you, what about you? I mean, you are not celebrating, well, it may be a celebration, but going to be connecting with this on a couple of levels.
Yes.
One is as a Mohawk woman, and as you've told us, there's such an important part to your history here, but also just from a scientific perspective. So what are you looking forward to today?
Yeah, I've never seen a total solar eclipse. In all of my time as an astronomer, the closest thing I've seen to it is a Venus transit, so just a little dot blocking the sun. So I'm very excited in my nerdy astronomy side to see
We're all
my
nerdy
first
astronomers
eclipse.
today. Suddenly we're all umbrophiles. We've all become shadow lovers.
Yes.
So you've seen that. But when there is totality and the moon is fully covering the sun, we may see planets around the sun, depending on what it
Yes.
looks like, mightn't we?
Yeah, if it's dark enough, we may see some of the brightest objects in the sky. So some planets, some very bright stars, and I've heard there's a special kind of like twilight that falls, so almost like a sunset of kinds.
On Earth or oh yes, it's going to get dark. Everyone's going to get quiet.
Yeah.
It's going to be remarkable. So you're interested in that as obviously from science, and again from the Mohawk perspective. I wish I could show you this. Just out of shot is a group of women in ribbon skirts. Obviously, these are Indigenous women.
Yes.
The Indigenous tradition, the oral storytelling traditions, you're not the only one thinking about this. We had a wonderful Innu scientist a little bit earlier on. Oh, I think we actually do have it. I'm so sorry. I didn't think we were able to capture that. But now, so Melanie, you can see here, these are from Katie Nicholson, our other reporter. So she is capturing this. This is a sunrise and water ceremony with 11 First Nations who've come from Quebec.
Wow.
To be here for Niagara Falls. So as you see that, Melanie, what's your reaction to that?
I am a very proud Indigenous woman to see representation from so many nations here. I forgot my ribbon skirt on the drive. I meant to wear it today, so I'm very happy to see Indigenous women wearing some regalia and that has meaning to them and their stories captured in their clothing.
Well, you are sharing your story. This is live. Smudging ceremony to begin the day, just for people to understand. That's a purification, is it? To get a very special sacredness to what's going to happen today. So how will they be? What will they be thinking about then, in terms of what's going to happen? The sun, the sky, the stars. It will have special meaning.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and all Indigenous peoples across Canada will be celebrating in their own way.
Right.
But I think one thing I heard yesterday on a panel of Indigenous scholars was really the theme of gratitude and thinking about our place in the world and how really it's not up to us to interpret what the eclipse means. It's just respecting those objects in the sky and what will come later as a result of their joining together. So people talked a lot about something new happening because of this joining of the sun and the moon, and a lot of gratitude and respect for their place in the solar system and thinking about our place on Earth. So I think that's one thing that a lot of Indigenous peoples will be thinking about in lots of different ways today.
You know what? I also have not seen a total solar eclipse. I think I'll be thinking about some of those things too as I'm watching and as you're experiencing your first. Melanie, thank you for coming all this way. I know you're heading to watch it in a different location, but I really appreciate all of your time and expertise and insight, and enjoy this special occasion. Melanie Demers here with us in Niagara Falls. Our special coverage continues on CBC Morning Live.
Displaced Palestinians have returned to a ruined wasteland in Haudenosaunee after Israel withdrew most of its troops from the area. It's estimated that more than 90% of the buildings in the city were damaged or destroyed in 6 months of fighting. Israel pulled nearly all of its ground forces from Haudenosaunee to prepare them for a new battlefront in Rafah. I'm Marianne Demain, also making news this Monday morning. A new warning about the potential for a nuclear disaster at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant. The International Atomic Energy Agency issued the warning after a drone strike in the facility on Sunday. Russia accused Ukraine of launching the attack, which left 3 people injured. Ukraine has denied its involvement. The Zaporizhzhia plant, which is the largest nuclear facility in Europe, has been in Russian hands since the opening stage of the war.
Perfection with a touch of sweet redemption.
The University of South Carolina has won the women's NCAA basketball title to wrap up an undefeated season. The Gamecocks beat Iowa 87-75 Sunday to claim the championship. This was the final college game for Iowa superstar Caitlin Clark. Tonight, the men play their final. Toronto's Zach Edey will lead the Purdue Boilermakers against the Connecticut Huskies. Tip-off is just after 9 p.m. Eastern. Stay with us for all of the latest developments right here on CBC News Network.
during the total eclipse of 2017.
Some animals also reacted with what we interpret as anxiety, and some of them did start galloping during totality.
Others barely seemed to notice, like the grizzly bears.
And they were just sleeping in the sun, and they couldn't be bothered by the eclipse.
And then there's what the Galapagos tortoises got up to.
They literally started like breeding behaviors in front of us. which was crazy.
The researchers behind that last study are doing it again for this eclipse. You can go to Solar Eclipse Safari to sign up and share your observations too. So that is one of the big questions, isn't it? What will the animals do? What will the birds do? And even for the botanists, what will the plants do during the moments of totality when day becomes night for a few minutes? And that's one of the things we're going to talk about next with Dolph de Jong, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Toronto Zoo, getting ready for the eclipse today. Mr. de Jong, welcome. I'm so happy to meet you. Thank you for being our guest. Where are you? What habitat are you in front of there at the zoo today?
It's great to be here. I'm in the Tundra Trek in front of the Arctic wolves with some blue sky, and we're really looking forward to this afternoon.
Oh, don't tell me about the blue sky, Mr. de Jong. I'm blowing away in the mist and the cloud here in Niagara Falls. You've got much better weather than I. I wonder, I bet your big question is, what are they going to do today? What are you excited about in terms of studying your animals?
Well, what I'm most excited about, how the eclipse has brought out curiosity across the board. People are paying attention to things they don't usually talk about and really honoring the scientific process with regards to monitoring an animal. So we have guests coming in, they can scan a QR code, and they will be watching with our expert staff to see if the animals do behave differently before, during, and after this really rare event.
So show me, I'll come back to that participatory aspect in just a second, but show me around a little bit, the animals in that habitat, and I think you're close to the polar bears as well. I mean, how do you think they might react? What are they doing now, and how do you think they might react this afternoon?
So right now you have our Arctic wolves, and they're in one of those high spots, a vantage point they frequently are on during the day when they're sleeping, when they're resting, and we're wondering, will they become more active when it gets dark? Will they start displaying those behaviors that you'd see in a nocturnal species? And as we pan around, we also have our polar bear habitat behind us. And we know bears tend to do their own thing and often nap through the day. We don't know if they'll wake up, if they'll just even notice, maybe they'll sleep right through it. But that's the great part about having the systems in place to watch and compare it before and after.
That's one of the really interesting things about this eclipse, in my view, is it's really become a citizen scientist opportunity, with people taking pictures and observing and listening and then sending it in so we can learn so much more. So that's what you're doing at the Toronto Zoo. You were mentioning a little bit, but maybe give us some more detail. People are going to be in, and young people too, to watch their favorite animals. And then what are you going to do with their observations and their information?
So guests of all ages will be able to see the pop-up signs we have around. There's a QR code on it and a website link. And there it talks about, where are you? What species are you looking at? What are you seeing? Are you seeing foraging behavior? Are you seeing movement? Are you seeing vocalizations? We'll get to record that all as part of a data set. And this started yesterday. We started paying attention to that, and we had some amazing young citizen scientists out. And then we'll bring all that data out and be able to put out a report. So when this happens elsewhere, folks will know what to look for.
That is fantastic. I wonder, where you are, Toronto's getting 99% coverage, but it's not totality. So do you think that might have an effect in terms of the behavior of the animals? Will it be to the same degree as maybe those in zoos or places in the path of totality?
Well, one of the great things about being part of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, we know other zoos are also doing monitoring, and we'll be able to collaborate, work together, and talk about those types of things. And again, it's the scientific process in action, and that would be a great hypothesis that suggests the longer it's dark, you may see some additional and other behaviors.
I'm excited for the science you're going to do today. Can you just share one little bit of advice to people who can't get to a zoo to be with your animals? I'm thinking all of the people who have pets at home, dogs and cats, who may react very unusually today. What should they be watching for, and what should they be thinking about?
You know, a huge responsibility for everybody if you have a pet at home, and this is a great example of choice and control. So providing those animals the opportunity to be in their safe place. If they want to go inside, don't make them stay outside with you, and just giving them that choice and control as well.
Dolph DeYoung, the CEO of the Toronto Zoo, there with your safety glasses, your Eclipse glasses. I'm super glad to see those too. I know you're giving them out to people who are going to be there. Thank you for that information, and really enjoy a very special day at the zoo. Thanks for the time today. Okay, from animals, why don't we continue along here? How about some amphibians, some frogs, and also combining eclipses here? The frog statues outside the Perot Museum in Dallas. Yes, Ross Perot, his family, they have theirs. And it's a reminder to us to keep your eyes properly protected when you take in the sun later on today. You can never look at a partial eclipse without protection. Yes, for those minutes of totality if you're in the path, but never with a partial solar eclipse. And there is a very vivid reminder. And while I tell you about Dallas, incidentally, Dallas is the largest city to experience a total solar eclipse today, right on the path of totality. And Steve Futterman's going to join us from Dallas a little bit later on to give us the view from that city. You know, they're actually having a big viewing party on the property where Dallas, the show, was actually filmed. The Ewing family, they're having a big event there for Dallas for the solar eclipse. Big celebrations all along the path of totality. Glad you're experiencing with us today. We'll be back in Niagara Falls in just a moment here on CBC Morning Live. We want to hear from you today. We want to see your videos. We want to see your pictures. We want to hear the stories of where are you watching the eclipse? With whom are you watching the eclipse? What are you doing to celebrate the eclipse? Are you getting married? What an auspicious beginning to a married life. Chantal Bruneau, I will tell you, sent us an email, and she said today is her mom's 75th birthday. So happy birthday to Mom. They're heading to her home in North Bay, Ontario to watch the eclipse from her backyard with cake, with Prosecco and eclipse glasses, of course. And Chantal writes she cannot wait because she's been waiting since the 1970s for this, she says. As I was mentioning, 1979 was the last time anywhere in Canada saw a total solar eclipse. But where we are heading next is a place that has not seen a total solar eclipse since, wait for it, 932 AD. That's more than 1,000 years ago. You want to talk about pent-up eclipse demand? Let's go to Florenceville, Bristow in New Brunswick, and Brett Ruskin is there. Brett, good morning and happy Eclipse Day.
Good morning, Heather. Welcome to New Brunswick. This is a spot where you watch that path of totality. It cuts a wide swath across the entire province. The worst place to watch New Brunswick's eclipse is still going to see 97% totality, 97% eclipse, but most New Brunswickers will have the best seat in the house with that 100% totality. So one more percentage, though, that was on the minds of the organizers, of eclipse fans here, was 30%. That was the chance of clear skies, typically cloudy this time of year. So they had an idea. They said, okay, how about we eliminate that cloud variable from the viewing experience? We put a telescope, sensors, cameras on a payload, on a tower that's 6 or 7 feet tall, attach a balloon to it, send it up to the sky above the clouds, 50,000 feet, up to 100,000 feet. That is the plan. That's what's going to be launched from this field, kind of just over there, or perhaps over there, depending on where the actual launch site is, where they determine the best spot where it's going to be. And so I was able to speak with David Hunter. He's one of the main organizers, one of the main masterminds behind this project. Here's what he had to say, kind of walking through a couple of the different items on this payload.
The very top of this is our pride and joy. It's got a flat mirror, and we have position sensing things and lots of calculations going on, such that even as the payload is turning around, that we're going to keep looking at the sun by changing where the mirror is oriented, such that the sun goes up into this little camera and sensor up there.
And so that sensor, that mirror apparatus, is going to be capturing those images and beaming them down live back to Earth. We will be taking them live here on News Network, as well as around the world too. And so that's the plan, to have this payload go up and then disconnect from that balloon at a certain height. It'll float back down with the parachute. There's a whole team that's going to be rescuing and recovering this payload from probably the deep woods of New Brunswick, or even Maine, depending on which way the wind goes. Heather.
So, Brett, Mr. Hunter, if I remember the story that we told about him, he remembers being a boy, 7 years old, I think, and he went to an eclipse and he was so disappointed because it was cloudy. And as a young boy, he couldn't see it fully as he wanted to at that time. The weather is obviously central to him. He's hoping for nice conditions for his incredible experiment today. It looks to me pretty nice right now. What's the forecast for you there in Florenceville, Bristol?
Heather, if there was such thing as cloud karma, we'd be on the good end of things, because all this money and this attention and this thought was spent on preparing for a cloudy day to get that telescope, that balloon, above the clouds. But this spot, most of New Brunswick, looks like it's going to be one of the clearest areas in North America following that path of totality. One issue, though, the winds. Here is David Hunter once again.
Surface winds, which will, with our big balloon, we'll try to flop it over. But then when we get off, then the upper winds, the jet stream, will take the payload with it. We're going to have to adjust our launch time and height we let the thing go to remain in the path of totality.
And so that is the plan for today, what's happening here in Florenceville, Bristol. Heather, I want to mention, I saw your Eclipse donut. I will raise you one more, because this is one of the main areas for McCain, the French fries. So in that barn over there, yes, that building, that's Potato World. which is apparently a museum dedicated to potatoes. Solar French fries. They're handing out free French fries later on.
Oh. Okay, you have the main course, I have the dessert. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
This is going to be really good. I am a little bit blue sky envious of you, I have to admit, at this moment. But I'm looking forward to talking to you again, Brett. I'm looking forward to having that live stream as part of our special coverage this afternoon. Thank you very much. And can I get you thinking about Eclipse playlist, too, while you're at it today? Music? Because while we're in the Maritimes, let me tell you a story. One of the songs that everybody keeps talking about is Carly Simon, You're So Vain. You know, not just You're So Vain, but then you flew your Learjet up to Nova Scotia to see a total eclipse of the sun, 1970, 1972 reference. So that's one of the songs people are seeing. But what's on your playlist today as you drive to your eclipse viewing location? Would it be Moon Shadow by Cat Stevens? Would it be Moon Dance by Van Morrison? Would it be Black Hole Sun from Soundgarden? Or would it be this?
Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit lonely and you're never coming around. Turn around. Every now and then
I know. I promise I'll play other songs, but you bet Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler is going to be on repeat for many, many people today. But back to that question, what's on your Eclipse playlist? We'd love to hear that. What are you listening to? What are you doing to experience the eclipse? Morning Live at CBC.ca.
Every now and then I fall apart. Every now and then I get a little bit restless and I dream of something wise. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit helpless and I'm lying like a child in your arms.
Because sometimes that total eclipse is over the ocean, or the southern tip of Africa, or slicing through Japan. For a city in what's called this path of totality to ever find itself in that shadow cone again, on average, you'd have to wait about 375 years.
Wow, so indeed a very special event. Now, most of the country should experience a partial eclipse, and the closer you are to the path and further east, the more of that you will see. So Vancouver, just a 28% chance of, or not, 28% of the sun, pardon me, will be covered by the moon. Now, this is not a precipitation forecast. This is how much of the moon will cover the sun. So Timmins, 84%. Now, even if you're just outside of this line of totality, the path of totality, you could be looking at upwards of 98, 99%. So it's still quite a show. But if you are in the path, that's when really the special things happen. Now, when we're talking about our cloud cover outlook, when you see this turquoise color, places like Sherbrooke over towards Fredericton, This is just about ideal conditions, clear skies. But I do want to mention, even where you do get some cloud cover, now I've never experienced the totality of a solar eclipse, so I've been doing some research, and there are some individuals who've done this many, many times, and they're saying even with cloud cover, you know, mid to high level clouds especially, you can still get some very dramatic colors to the clouds as well. The darkness almost seems, the onset is almost very quicker, and you can clearly see the moon's shadow coming and going. So don't worry if it's not crystal clear skies. You can still get some good stuff as long as it's not, you know, pouring rain or you got some flurries like you've had in parts of Newfoundland. Then it's not nearly as dramatic. But here's your forecast. So pretty mild, but the areas to watch out for that extra cloud would be in and around the Niagara region, Hamilton, Toronto. Oh, Toronto's not in totality. It's 99%. But you know, it's clearing in the southwest. You're in Montreal eastwards, and you should be in the clear, but you're towards Kingston and Cornwall. I think it's mainly cloudy with maybe a few sunny breaks, but again, so it's not going to be as dramatic if it was clear, but you should still see some pretty cool effects. Now, the rain will be heavier Tuesday, Wednesday, well, light rain for that, and then Thursday, Friday. So this would actually still be the best day for the eclipse to occur this week. Newfoundland's still looking at quite a bit of cloud cover, but across the Maritimes, other than a few passing clouds, this is going to be really, really nice. And you've got flurries and showers after that. So Miramichi, your max time is 4:35, and Summerside, PEI, 4:37. These will be some good locations to grab the CB eclipse.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime profound event that you want to be a part of.
For the eclipse to come to us this is our one and only chance.
What is it about a total solar eclipse that has captivated humanity, that inspires awe, fear, and wonder?
You cannot prepare yourself for how intensely cosmic it is.
The moment the sky darkens and the sun's brilliance is extinguished, just for a moment by the moon's shadow. For some, a time for reverence and reflection.
It's really a miracle of our universe.
To witness, it might take your breath away. Millions are within the path of totality, so whether you'll be beneath the moon's shadow or experiencing this remarkable event with us at CBC, we've got you covered. So strap in as we bring you a full day of special live coverage of the eclipse in Canada. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox, and we are bringing you live special coverage from Niagara Falls today. We've come to one of the natural wonders of the world to cover a natural wonder, and what a perfect backdrop to experience that today. The total solar eclipse, Niagara Falls, on the path of totality. A total solar eclipse is an event so rare there hasn't been one on Canadian soil since 1979. We won't see one again until 2044, and we have to make the most of every moment today. All of Canada will get to witness at least a partial solar eclipse this afternoon, and if the weather cooperates, which is a big if where I am right now, and if you're lucky enough to be in the path of totality, well, you're going to be in for the show of a lifetime. Let's take a look at the track for us today. Our first glimpse of totality in Canada just after 3 p.m. Eastern down in Essex County, Pelee Island, the southernmost point of Canada. And from that point all the way along, we have reporters and guests all along this path, and we hope you will experience it all with us today. Niagara Falls is our focal point, and it's a gathering point today for thousands, although I must say that the weather, it's quite misty, quite cool, as you perhaps can tell, but the crowd has actually dissipated since we've been on the air with you this morning at 6 Eastern, but it's going to be filling in as that 3:18 totality approaches. Right now, with the sun up for about an hour and a half, the people who are here, they've been in line. There are still some people here toughing out the mist. They've been for hours getting the choice spots, and Katie Nicholson has been speaking with some of them.
One couple, their alarm went off at 2 a.m. They drove in from Elmira, Ontario. They were lined up to try to get into one of the main parking areas. I talked to people who flew in from San Francisco to be here, and I have done this drive, and so that's why I was really impressed by this group that I want to introduce you to. Where'd y'all come from?
We came from middle of Manitoba. We left Friday afternoon and drove like crazy all the way to get here.
So Rennie, you are a bit of a backyard astronomer. Why is it you really want it to be here? That is a long drive, and it can be pretty monotonous.
Well, this will be my second total solar eclipse, and yeah, this is where you want to be. You can always see the partials, but they're just not the same as that total solar when you can see the corona.
And you convinced all of these folks to come with you as well.
I did.
All right. So Jennifer, why you came from Winnipeg? Jennifer Wiebe. Why did you decide to go along with everybody?
Well, I did bring my son with me. I wanted him to experience it. I had experienced it already in 1979 in school. I was in grade school then, and so I just wanted him and I to have that experience like I did. So, and like Rennie said, it's a once in a lifetime kind of a thing.
And you guys have staked out a spot in sort of, so those who go to Winnipeg Folk Festival know you put a tarp down. That is your spot. And you picked out a spot that you think is going to have the best view because you brought a telescope as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so where is that spot? You want to point that out to us where you think the best view?
Is right over in that direction, over by the hydro substation, or power station, up against a fence, few trees around us, and let's hope that the sky stays reasonably clear and we can see the eclipse and without clouds in our way.
Thank you, Margaret. All right. And so I hope you guys do get to have a great view. We still don't know. How are you going to feel if it's a little overcast?
Well, we'll be disappointed, obviously. However, you can't control Mother Nature. You just gotta deal with it. If it's light clouds, you can still see through, especially with the eclipse glasses. So we'll just make the best of it.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for chatting with me, and good luck. And so, Heather, just so you know, there's lots of spaces just like that now being taken out. People are starting to come in with their coolers. They've got all of their provisions, their blankets, their chairs. People are setting in for the long haul, what may, with the weather today. We still don't know exactly what kind of a view we're going to get, and people really don't know how I guess what to prepare for. That's sort of what the public safety folks have been planning for about 2 years.
Katie, thank you so very much. I'm going to talk to the mayor about that planning and how things are looking today with the state of readiness coming up a little bit later on this hour, as a matter of fact, on this eclipse day in Niagara Falls. Katie said the big question about the weather. Look at this nice man who's toughing it out for me, Daniel Lee Ying, who's with Astronomy in Action. He's Ryan's partner, and they work together on these incredible experiments. I was looking at the big crowds over at your mobile inflatable planetarium. You must have had a great weekend here.
We've had a wonderful weekend. There's been so many people coming out, and we've been sharing the experience about what they might experience later this afternoon.
Well, you're going to help us understand all of that, too. One of the most important things, maybe the most important thing to remember today, is to watch whatever you're going to watch safely. Yes. So why don't you take us through some really important things to keep in mind, Daniel?
Okay, so first of all, as we all know, we should never look at the sun.
Right.
So what you want to make sure, some people think you can use sunglasses. Obviously, you're not going to use sunglasses as well. But probably if you haven't gone by now, as you can see, we've got solar eclipse viewers right here. You got your own version. That's gorgeous. I like that. Yes.
My sister said those.
Oh, fantastic. So obviously, and you want to make sure that when you're putting them on, you're not looking up and putting them on, right? A lot of people are going to do that because they're going to try to find the sun because it is going to get a lot more dim. So you want to make sure that you actually, look down,
put them
on, and then look up at the sun, right? Make sure you can see it. And then when you're done, look down and take them off.
You're taking them off.
Yeah.
That moment of totality, which is the only time you can take them off.
Absolutely.
Look down before you take them off.
Yes.
Okay.
And usually a good way to indicate for that is when you have the glasses on, right? When the sun's completely blocked and you can't see it through the glasses, you'll probably hear the sounds and everyone using their apps as well. But that's usually a good indicator.
Okay. Yeah. So what else? There are other ways that you can watch safely, because these were in such sort of supply. We were trying to come up with other things that you can use to watch indirectly what's happening safely. Yes. So what else? You brought some other things here to show us.
A few other things. So one is one that you actually made with Ryan on Friday, which is a nice pinhole camera.
Okay.
Right. So obviously, if you have still time to do it, once again, it's just a box, and what you're going to do is just cut out a hole on the side, or even over here, and that's going to be your viewer to look into the box. Okay. You want to have a nice white background, and you're going to cut another hole here and put a piece of foil in front, and you're just using a pencil or a toothpick and poking a hole through, and you're just going to aim this at the sun. Obviously, you're not going to look at the sun. You're going to hold it behind you like this, and aim it so that it's facing the sun, and the sun will pass through the hole, and it'll illuminate an image on the white.
If you don't have the box, or it would be pretty easy to make, but this is, let's go to the pantry and see what we're into the kitchen, and you can use this. How do you use these things?
So it's very simple. Once again, it's similar to creating that pinhole effect with the camera. So, if you have a ladle, once again, you're looking away from the sun, you're kind of looking towards the shadows on the ground, and just make sure the holes of the ladle are pointing towards the sun, and the sunlight passing. The colander is going to give you multiple viewing of the solar eclipse as well.
That's
even a pinhole effect with trees as well, like as the light passes through the leaves, it's going to create a carpet of eclipses on the ground, which will be fantastic to view as well. Or interlace your fingers if you have yourself available.
Again, you put it in the direction of the sun. Now you have a couple, just in our last few seconds.
One last few seconds. So this is actually pretty cool. This is personalizing the experience. So what you can do is just get a strip of paper, and just get, you can write your name on it if you want, and just get a hole punch and hole punch your name. And then that way you can actually have your name get eclipsed during the eclipse, right? And you can do this all across Canada, which is great.
So how would you do that then?
So once again, you're just writing out your name.
Okay. And you would put that in the box?
And you just hold it, just like how you'd hold a colander. So as you can see.
Make one for me?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
there you go.
Thank you, Daniel.
So
my personalized eclipse, I will use that later. That is fantastic. Come on back. I have more questions. I have more questions about what it's going to be like in totality, partial versus total. I want to look at that constellation shirt again. So come on back. You need a warmer coat though. It's a bit brisk here, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Thank you, Daniel. I'll see you in just a couple of minutes.
Yes.
Look at that, Chris. Do you have one for Chris? Are you yours?
Oh, I'll get
Will
one
you
for
make
Chris
one
right
for
after.
Chris?
Absolutely.
We'll make you a
Chris, we got you one.
personalized
Awesome.
eclipse for you, Chris.
There you go. And you can take pictures. So
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Daniel. Chris is joining me now because obviously in the lead up to this, Chris, everybody and on our program all last week, we were saying, what's the latest forecast? What's the cloud cover? What is happening? It's pretty thick here this hour. We still have a few hours to go, and hopefully, even if it's cloudy, the skies will open for a few moments during totality. But what is happening this hour as far as along the path so that people can plan where they want to see this?
Absolutely, Heather. And what we're showing you here is where the optimal viewing would be in terms of sky cover. And this turquoise color there, especially as you go east of Montreal towards Fredericton, that's where we expect the clearest skies and the best view. Now, you'll notice that much of southern and eastern Ontario, as well as much of central and western Newfoundland, is in that gray, that fair to poor, because there's going to be the clouds associated with it. We got low pressure in the Atlantic, bringing the clouds in Newfoundland. And this one over the state of Minnesota that's bringing some widespread cloud. Now, the good news is there's not a lot of rain with this forecast, so you don't have to contend with the rain. And even with high and mid-level cloud, you get more of a diffused look of the sun as opposed to the full sun, but you can get some pretty spectacular colors with the cloud cover, and you can see the moon shadow coming in and departing. Now, here's the deal. We're expecting some increasing clearing across southwestern Ontario, and there may be a mainly cloudy with some sunny breaks around the Golden Horseshoe area. Southeastern Ontario still mainly cloudy, maybe a sunny break, and Montreal, I think the clouds may start to arrive during the eclipse, but I think you're still in the clear for the most part. And then after that, the rain comes in for the rest of the week, so you really want to make the most of today. Now, regarding the Maritimes, one of the best places to view, right across central New Brunswick and western PEI, you are in totality, and I like what I see there. Newfoundland, there is going to be, though, that passing cloud cover for you, so you might have to drive around a little bit across Newfoundland, but, gander to Stephenville in that path of totality. So we don't see any rain in this forecast, but again, it's the amount and the height of the clouds. Low clouds are bad. That can really dim everything. But the higher the clouds, the more sporadic nature of the clouds, then you still can get a pretty good show. Not that the eclipse would be in full blast across the west coast, because actually only about 28% of the sun will be covered by the moon, but you're unlikely to see much of that because we've got rain. And much of this is going to happen today into tomorrow morning. And for elevations above 1,000 meters, you got another dose of snow headed your way. Heather.
Chris, thank you. You're so helpful to us today as we plan. But can I get your help with something else?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, everyone's making a playlist, an eclipse playlist, and I would like your suggestions, please.
Okay, how many can I give you? I've got 4 at the top of my head, Heather.
Okay, give me just 2 now, and we'll talk more about it later.
Okay, how about Brain Damage Eclipse, Pink Floyd, love that one, and Bark at the Moon by...
Wait, can I just... I was going to say, before you go on, they're actually performing that. A 10-piece ensemble is playing the whole Dark Side of the Moon album here in Niagara Falls.
Incredible.
So your song is going to be performed. And what's your second one?
How about Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne?
These are so typical, Chris. This is so
of
perfect.
Course.
Do you want... I feel like I'm going to counterbalance that. Here are my classical suggestions. You want mine too?
Big time.
Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata.
Oh, lovely.
And I think Gustav Holst's Planets. There you go.
Those
Is that
are 2
okay?
great choices.
So, you could
those
have
would have been
both.
my 3rd and 4th.
Put them together on the play. I know they would have. All right, so we're talking about the moon. Thank you, Chris. I'll be back to you in just a second. We're talking about the moon here, as the moon later today, of course, is going to pass in front of the sun, between the Earth and the sun. And yesterday, when it was a much nicer day in Niagara Falls, let me tell you, I had the chance to spend time with the first Canadian who is going to actually travel around the moon as part of the Artemis 2 mission for NASA and Canadian Space Agency. Astronaut Jeremy Hansen, I spoke to him, and here's part of our conversation. So, Jeremy, I'm so happy to see you again, and I'm so happy you were able to find time in your very packed schedule here in Niagara Falls.
I will always make time for you, trust me. Pleasure's mine.
What are you doing for the eclipse here?
Oh, it's super special. They brought me up here to just take it in and observe it myself, and a chance for me to connect with communities both on the Canadian, U.S. side, sharing about science, and then on Monday I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to love it.
Well, I'm wondering, as you have these first conversations, as people get ready, you get some feedback from the people to whom you're speaking, what's your sense of the level of anticipation and excitement about this?
Yeah, it's pretty high, has been my experience. People are really excited about it. I've met some crowds, and now I ask, who's seen one before? And there won't be a lot, but there will be some people that are they will travel anywhere to see it again. So it gives you the sense it's worthwhile, because people that have had it before, they want it again. They want to experience it.
What about you? Have
you? First time. What about you?
You never have experienced a total solar eclipse?
No.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
What do you think we're in for on Monday?
It sounds cool. I mean, obviously it would be neat to observe the sun with the moon blocking it. We'll be able to see the edges of the sun. They call it the corona, which is like the atmosphere of the sun. So that would be unique to be able to see that. But I'm also really interested to see how the landscape changes the colors. People talk about seeing different, almost like light moving across the ground, and the colors change, the animal behavior changes. I don't know, I'm just going to try and take it all in.
What kind of effect do you think it's going to have on you? Some people really feel transformed by the experience.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, you have to ask me after.
After we'll have a talk.
I don't want to set expectations too high and let myself down.
Maybe you'll become an eclipse chaser at the end of this
I might,
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you imagine that? Not sure how he's going to react, but what a perspective to look at the moon and think that maybe as early as next year, sometime after September of 2025, he will be traveling around the moon. Jeremy Hansen, as part of Artemis 2, the first Canadian to do so. You'll hear more of that interview coming up a little bit later on. He's doing a lot of work with NASA, obviously. He's very intrigued with some of the NASA experiments today, particularly the ones that involve some jet planes flying very high and doing some very interesting experiments. So you'll hear part of that in part 2 of my conversation with Jeremy Hansen. 15 years ago, he was named Canadian astronaut, 15 years ago next month. So it's quite an anniversary time for him. I'm just going to send things back from Niagara Falls to Toronto for a moment or two. Marianne Domain with you as part of our coverage and following the other stories that are making news today. Marianne, good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Thanks so much. And one of the stories we are keeping an eye on is out of Israel this morning. Israel has withdrawn nearly all of its ground forces from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. It is estimated that nearly all of the buildings in the city were destroyed or damaged during the 6 months of intense fighting there. The Israeli military says the pulled troops will be deployed to new battlefronts, particularly in and around the city of Rafah. The UN's atomic watchdog has warned that a recent attack on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant has raised the risk of a major nuclear disaster. Russia accused Ukraine of launching a drone strike on the facility on Sunday. That's where 3 people were injured in the attack. Ukraine has denied its involvement. Russia has controlled the Zaporizhzhia plant since the early stages of the war. The public inquiry into foreign interference in Canadian elections will hear from the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor today. Natalie Drouin will begin her testimony this morning. Vincent Rigby, who held the post from 2020 to 2021, will testify this afternoon. The Prime Minister himself, Justin Trudeau, is set to address the inquiry on Wednesday. And those are the other stories making news this Monday. Heather, I'll send it back to you where you are in beautiful Niagara Falls this morning. Glass is standing by.
Okay. Yes, I have mine here too. I've got all sorts of sets. I don't know how many sets I have. I'm not sure beautiful is the word I'd be using right at this moment, but the vista is beautiful. You're absolutely right. One of the natural wonders of the world as we are here to watch another of the natural wonders of this world. And we have reporters and guests all set up for you all across, all along the path of totality as we watch history unfold really across North America today. The first total solar eclipse to cover all 3 countries in North America, because it's going to begin in Mexico and Mazatlan, you see there, through 13 different states, on its way to us and moving all the way through across parts of Canada. There's the map. And then later on this afternoon, Newfoundland and Labrador, that is the last of the continental destinations for the eclipse this time before it heads off to sea. We're with you until 10 o'clock Eastern, so we have about an hour and a half left. But then, 1 p.m. Eastern this afternoon, special live coverage when all of this happens. When the partial eclipse begins, we're going to be with you for totality moments all along the path. Andrew Nichols will be part of things with me. He'll be live from the roof of the CBC building in Toronto, telling us about partial solar eclipse and what he's experiencing there. We hope wherever you are, you experience the eclipse in Canada, wherever you get CBC News. And thank you for your notes this morning. You're already letting us know where you're going to be experiencing the eclipse, what you're going to be doing, and where. We got a wonderful note from André Forcier, who writes to us that he has been planning for this day for more than 5 years. His best friend had a major heart attack, and Andre writes to tell us that he told his friend to hang in there until 2024 to witness the total eclipse. It's a great story because he did, and the two are going to watch the spectacle today together. Andre, you must send us pictures today so we can show them tomorrow. What a wonderful story. We've had birthday celebrations, maybe people getting married. Who knows what you're doing? We want to hear about all of it today. Morning Live at CBC.ca. Is right in the path of totality. Her name is Letitia Ferrer. She says she's addicted to the feeling that for a few seconds, she's at one with the universe. She's 63 now. She hopes to make it 103. And I wish her all the best in that. If she does, she will hit her goal of chasing her 50th total solar eclipse. That is incredible. Godspeed to her, Letitia. Let's talk about Texas, especially Dallas. Dallas is the largest of any city in the path of totality. And of course, Steve Futterman would find an interesting location like that to be part of. Good morning, Steve, and happy Eclipse Day.
Happy Eclipse Day to you, Heather. You know, I'm based in LA. I love Hollywood cliffhangers. We're going to have a Hollywood cliffhanger here in Dallas today. It all has to do with clouds. Now, right now, if you had the eclipse at this moment, it would just be perfect. In fact, yesterday, Saturday, Friday, it would have been perfect to have the eclipse. Well, around 1:40 Central Time, 2:40 Eastern Time, when the total eclipse takes place here in Dallas, we're not so sure. There's going to be some clouds in the area, scattered clouds, so it's a bit up in the air, but obviously everyone crossing their fingers, hoping we're going to see totality. You know, you mentioned the lady who wants to see all these eclipses. I feel like a newbie. I rarely feel like a newbie. This is only my third total eclipse. Now, here in Dallas, so many people coming from all over the country, North America, really around the world to see it, that the Dallas Police Department yesterday put on Twitter an announcement that a number of road closures will be taking place during totality. So it's going to be a bit difficult to get into Dallas if you don't get into Dallas very early. Now, I'm at Clyde Herman Park. This is in downtown Dallas. This will be one of the main viewing areas. Not many people here right now. A couple behind me. They're from the Boston area, but we expect this area to be jam-packed when totality hits again around 1:40 local time, 2:40 Eastern time.
Okay, I have more questions. Do you say this is going to be your third? So you've already seen two?
Yes, I went to Cabo San Lucas in, I think, the 90s, and then a few years ago I was in Salem, Oregon. I think that was in 2017.
Two more than I have. So I am also with you in terms of new at these total solar eclipses. And you said you love Hollywood movies and movie plots, and you're from LA. I'm really interested in finding the pictures later today, Steve, of South Fork Ranch, which is the setting, you know, for Dallas, because I understand they've actually opened up South Fork so that people can take in the eclipse where the Ewings were, of course, fictitious family, but that'll be a fun part of watching it in Dallas, I'm sure. But where you are, obviously there aren't the crowds that are going to be there by the end of the day. But what are they telling you? How excited are they?
Well, everyone's obviously very excited. We mentioned so many people coming in from around, North America, around the world being here. I ran into this one gentleman yesterday. You know, entrepreneurship, never far behind at these events. I found a young man from Salt Lake City who came here to Dallas to sell those cardboard eclipse glasses.
We're from Utah. My best friend made the Nova Lens glasses about 6 months ago. He's a big science nerd, and he's been pumped for 6 months. So been selling them online in bulk, and then we for sure had to come see the eclipse. So we're like, hey, let's sell them, pay for our trip, and everyone in Dallas has been awesome and nice and pumped.
So, Heather, yesterday he said he was selling them for $3 per pair. He said when totality hits, they may spike up the prices. And of course, the big worry, are we going to see the eclipse or not? I spoke to this young man yesterday, 10-year-old Liam Ramirez from Frisco, Texas, and he told me his teacher told him, even if there's a cloud cover, we're going to get total darkness. And he assured me, it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome regardless. I share your concern because it's pretty cloudy where I am too in Niagara Falls, Steve, but I'm hoping for the best, and whatever happens, we'll make the most of it,
and Heather,
won't we?
Can I mention one more thing?
Yes.
Well, I want to add my song to the playlist, and I'm going to even give you Canadian content. Clouds by Joni Mitchell. I've looked at clouds that way. I may look at clouds very differently after today. Yes.
That is fantastic. You come up with more, because I'm going to speak to you again as the day goes on, Steve. That's a great addition to it, and thank you very much, Steve Futterman. Perfect for today. I'd like to see a few less of these clouds. Steve, thank you. We're going to continue on from Niagara Falls. There's our location. The crowd's thinned a little bit because the weather isn't the best. It's cold. There's quite a strong mist coming off the falls given the wind direction, but people are there staking out their positions, getting early pictures. How many pictures will be taken today of the solar eclipse? Don't forget your special filters if you're taking pictures today, and don't forget your glasses and ways to protect your eyes. The mayor of Niagara Falls is here with me, and we'll talk to him just after a short break on CBC Morning Live. I want to show you some scenes from earlier this morning where I am in Niagara Falls. This was a sunrise and water ceremony just beside my location. 11 First Nations, all from Quebec here. What is a sacred day, a sacred time for them as they prepare for the total solar eclipse. There are eclipse chasers who are here in Niagara Falls. Let me show you some pictures of them. Maurizio Valencia, Tim Judkins, they've come from Virginia. They're camped out just near us. They got to Niagara Falls on Saturday. It's Monday. They started setting up at 6:15 this morning. Look at their equipment, their cameras and their telescope all ready to go. Their plans tonight are to have dinner and fireworks, and their families are going to be joining them a little bit later on. They're getting their spot. Tim's daughter wants to be an aerospace engineer, and of course, that's a big part of this story here. Awakening or reawakening an interest in science and astrophysics and space physics and STEM. That's part of NASA's mission, Canadian Space Agency mission, and really everyone working in science, really looking at this moment as an opportunity to awaken people to really the wonders of the cosmos that we're discovering today. But the fact that there are so many people in town for this event, Niagara Falls, that's music to my next guest's ears. The mayor of Niagara Falls, Jim Diodati. Welcome and happy E-Day, I guess.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
Except for Niagara Falls, it's not just E-Day, it's D-Day. That means big event planned, and this has been a big event for you, hasn't it?
The biggest event in the city's history. You know, we host a lot of events, 14 million people every year, but nothing quite like this. And it's captured the imagination of people around the world. I've been getting calls, emails, texts from all over the world. And I think, Heather, it's because it's one of the great natural wonders of the world, one of the great celestial events of the universe, same place, same time, once in a lifetime.
That's why we're here for all of that. I've been using the benchmark of Nick Walenda. How many times have you told that story? When he walked on his tightrope from there to here, there were 150,000 people at that time. Yes. You think you could top that, don't you?
We do. Now, we're keeping an eye on the weather, and there's a good chance it could clear. But regardless, it's going to get very, very dark. And another thing, if it does clear and we do get a rainbow, it'll turn pink. This will be amazing to see things like this. So to have NASA here, the Canadian Space Agency, and Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh, yeah. You have to sell that.
Yes. So this morning we're going to go on one of the Niagara City cruise boats, and a bunch of us wear a bright yellow sun costume. There's a record set in China a number of years ago. I think it was around 290. We're 287. 287. Okay. 287. Well, we're blowing past it. We're going over 300, Heather, and we're going to wear those. And hopefully, if we're successful, we'll have a world record today.
I think that's just fantastic. But the weather, you mentioned the boat. Given the mist, I've called myself the new maid of the mist because I've been here for a couple of hours.
Oh
it's all coming in.
So wet.
I know. It's just like a rainfall.
Yes.
Listen, there's a tremendous vibe. There's a real energy to all of this. But obviously it's serious from your perspective, the city's perspective of welcoming all these people. And I know this is something you've been planning for a long, long time. A, B, C, D, E plans. What's in place? What do you have ready to go today?
So we have everything in place, I can tell you, from RCMP, OPP, Niagara Regional, Niagara Parks Police. We've got ambulance, we've got fire, emergency operations centers all over the region. We've got all portable setups. We've got porta potties. We have everything set up just in case there's gridlock and we can't get to people. We've got our road closure plans. We have so many hands on deck. It's all hands on deck approach to make sure A, it's safe, and B, it's fun and educational.
And that includes, there were helicopters, you have extra helicopters to get people out for medical needs, if anything like that. You've also
we've got helicopters, we've got drones, we've got, and as you said, plan A, B, C, D, all the way down. We've got, in case the cellular network goes down, we brought in portable units to bump that up. We've got satellite.
That's important, isn't it?
Just in case.
Yes.
Because we know, Heather, we learned from New Year's Eve. What happens right at midnight? We shoot fireworks over the falls. Everybody's got to talk to somebody, and the system it gets overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. So we took care of that, and we've got entertainment. And the reason we have entertainment, it's not as much. It's more of a safety thing, so everyone doesn't leave at once. So we get gradual departure from our event, and that's why we're doing that.
That's a big Queen Victoria Park, the concert later on to draw people there. It's a big part of the fun here in Niagara Falls. I hope you don't need any of those contingencies, but it sounds like a lot is in place. There was, really the articles that I read from around the world, they were quite surprised that the region took the step of going to state of emergency.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's even an advocacy group in Ontario challenging that in court, saying that was too much. There's
Yes.
nothing tangible as far as a danger right now. What do you think in hindsight? Was that the right thing to do?
Let's put it this way. The city of Niagara Falls did not do a declaration of emergency. I think you save emergency declarations for actual emergencies. Blizzards, train derailments, earthquakes, things like that. Not for something that may be an emergency, but the toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't get it back in. But the good news, Heather, is we're hitting headlines around the globe. And Niagara Falls was hit really hard during COVID. Domestic tourism, by and large, has returned to pre-pandemic numbers, but the international is lagging behind. Well, it's my hope that with all this exposure, it takes Niagara Falls from the back burner to the front burner, and it leads to increased international visitation. So maybe the upside to the downside of the emergency declaration is we're getting a lot of extra attention maybe we didn't count on.
And what about for you? I mean, obviously you're in the thick of things. He's on his bicycle, regardless of the conditions, going, zipping all around, visiting with people. What are you going to do today? Have you even seen a total solar eclipse before?
No. In 1979, I was in school for the partial solar eclipse, and it's funny how the world has changed. Back then, they told us, get away from the windows, close the curtains, and you're going to burn your eyes out or something. Now we say, let's go outside. And at the right time, we're going to take our glasses off and we're going to look up. Today's consumer, today's tourist wants experiential. They want authentic. They want natural. And you're going to get, it doesn't get much better. So I'm going to be there with everybody as the Niagara Symphony Orchestra plays some appropriate music during the eclipse. Then we're going to go to the main stage and we're going to have all sorts of entertainment, fun. It's just going to be a day of communing with nature and our fellow friends.
Well, we're delighted to be part of it, to tell the story of Niagara Falls today. We're fingers crossed for the one thing that we don't have control over, and that's that darn cloud cover.
Yes.
We'll keep our eye on that sun.
And I've got something to show you too,
Take
Heather.
a look at this.
Okay, this is the great reveal. I don't know if you can see this. I got mooned in the falls. Number one item everyone wants right now.
Are you serious? Not my Eclipse donut? I thought this was the number one item.
Okay,
my
well, number two
Eclipse
then.
donut.
Okay, then number two.
All right, well, between the two of us, thank you
Okay,
so much.
thanks, Heather.
All the best.
You
Listen,
too.
have a great Eclipse day.
I will, you too.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll talk to you later, and thanks very much. And stay with us. We're going to bring in one of our guests this morning who's with us from time to time, Daniel Lee Yang from Astronomy in Action. He's going to come in with some information that you need to know on this eclipse day. And there are the falls.
You've done this.
done at a U.S. zoo during the total eclipse of 2017.
Some animals also reacted with what we interpret as anxiety, and some of them did start galloping during totality.
Others barely seemed to notice, like the grizzly bears.
And they were just sleeping in the sun, and they couldn't be bothered by the eclipse.
And then there's what the Galapagos tortoises got up to.
They literally started like breeding behaviors in front of us, which was crazy.
The researchers behind that last study are doing it again for this eclipse. You can go to Solar Eclipse Safari to sign up and share your observations too. That is going to be one of my observations right on cue. Seagull going by. There have been quite a number of them this morning, and they've been quite vocal. I'm interested in learning today, just before totality, if they go silent. Daniel Liang, I'm going to be listening to that. Daniel's with Astronomy in Action. He and his partner Ryan are helping us understand what we're going to experience today. Daniel's never experienced a total solar eclipse, but you have an artistic representation
Yes, definitely.
of what it's going to look. I'll hold.
Okay,
You tell the story. Here's the sun.
Here's the sun. So throughout all of Canada,
right?
Everyone pretty much in the lower part of Canada is going to get a chance to see at least a partial eclipse, which is going to be fantastic. So I encourage everyone to go out and do it. Try some of those
safety glasses.
Safety glasses first.
Right.
Try some of the experiments we showed on our last segment.
Okay.
Once again, you're going to have the moon start to come, and it's going to start blocking out the sun like this. And
Takes a bite out of the earth. I love that. It takes a bite out of the sun and then takes more and more and covers it.
Right. But if you're in that path of totality,
right,
what will happen is, you're going to get eventually the moon blocking out the sun in its entirety.
Okay, well, wait a second. On that, how much of a difference is it? I mean, people travel to see totality because it really is night and day, isn't it? Partial versus total?
Well, yeah, it is. The partial, you're still getting the blockout, but there's still enough light coming through from the sun and energy output. So you're still just going to see, kind of like through the solar glasses, just the sun kind of getting partially eclipsed.
Okay.
When you're getting into a state of totality, what happens
Back to
is the light levels start to drop a few moments just before totality, and it gets dark. It can drop about 10 degrees, close to 10 degrees, right? The air is going to get a little still, right? And these light breeze is going to calm, right? And what's going to happen is eventually at the last moments, just before totality, you're going to start to see a beautiful diamond ring effect, the last light from the sun trying to creep through.
Just pause on that, because the moon is not just a perfect circle, is it? There are valleys and crags and peaks, and so this is the last burst of that sun through those rugged terrain.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. As we know, the moon's not a circle; it has all those valleys, peaks, and you're going to get little valleys and peaks right here, where the sunlight's going to pop through, and that's going to be your Bailey's beads.
Bailey's beads,
That's what they call
named after a real man, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As well as the diamond ring effect, as well, as you can see, and it creates a beautiful diamond ring.
Okay, and then la pièce de la résistance.
Yes.
There we go. Corona.
Yes. The beautiful ghostly wisdom. This is totality, as we know, and I encourage everyone, if they get a chance to see it, to go check it out. But it is possible that despite the monumental event that we have, that we might get cloudy.
I know, but not everywhere along the path is going to be cloudy. So if people are watching us where it's clear, when it is into the total eclipse and you're seeing the corona and you might see the chromosphere as well in all of this, what else might you see in the sky? What else should you watch for?
So not only are you going to see the corona and you're going to see all that, but also because it gets to twilight, what you're going to notice is some of the planets are going to start becoming visible.
Planets?
So Venus will start popping up. Just if you're staring at it, it's going just to be to the west of it, of the sun, so maybe to the right. And Jupiter will start peeking out as well. So you're going to start to see a few planets, right? Maybe some of the stars that you normally don't see are going to start popping out as well. So it's going to be quite a
There's a comet that's out there right now, a horned comet, I think. Might that be available?
So it might or might not, right? It's just depending on your viewing, right? And once again, it's going twilight, so it's not going completely dark, so you may not see it. Some people with their cameras are going to try to zoom in to see if they can get a good look.
It's the kind of thing that I gather from people who've seen many. These are the things you look for. You want the overall experience, and then once you're seasoned, you look for all of these more and more special features. It's very exciting. You must be excited.
I'm very excited. This is my first solar eclipse I'm going to get a chance to see. So, and the fact that it might be totality, will be fantastic. So.
Okay, come back. I have more questions for you.
Absolutely.
Daniel Li-Ying from Astronomy in Action. He's been in action all weekend with all sorts of people. He's been obviously teaching kids notably about this. And you know what? As basic as these are, they work. They teach the story, and I enjoyed that. Thank you. Our coverage continues here on CBC Morning Live. We are live at Niagara Falls, right smack dab in the path of totality.
It's estimated that more than 90% of the buildings in the city were damaged or destroyed in 6 months of fighting. Israel pulled nearly all of its ground forces from Haudenosaunee to prepare them for a new battlefront in Rafah. I'm Marianne Domain, also making news this Monday morning. A new warning about the potential for a nuclear disaster at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant. The International Atomic Energy Agency issued the warning after a drone strike on the facility on Sunday. Russia accused Ukraine of launching the attack, which left 3 people injured. Ukraine has denied its involvement. The Zaporizhzhia plant, which is the largest nuclear facility in Europe, has been in Russian hands since the opening stage of the war.
Perfection with a touch of sweet redemption.
The University of South Carolina has won the women's NCAA basketball title to wrap up an undefeated season. The Gamecocks beat Iowa 87-75 Sunday to claim the championship. This was the final college game for Iowa superstar Caitlin Clark. Tonight, the men play their final, and Toronto's Zach Edey will lead the Purdue Boilermakers against the Connecticut Huskies. Tip-off is just after 9 p.m. Eastern. Stay with us for all of the latest developments right here on CBC News Network.
sometimes that total eclipse is over the ocean, or the southern tip of Africa, or slicing through Japan. For a city in what's called this path of totality to ever find itself in that shadow cone again, on average, you'd have to wait about 375 years.
We have reporters and guests all set up for you all across, all along the path of totality as we watch history unfold really across North America today. The first total solar eclipse to cover all 3 countries in North America, because it's going to begin in Mexico and Mazatlan, you see there, through 13 different states on its way to us and moving all the way through across parts of Canada. There's the map, and then later on this afternoon, Newfoundland and Labrador. That is the last of the continental destinations for the eclipse this time before it heads off to sea. We're with you until 10 o'clock Eastern, so we have about an hour and a half left. But then, 1 p.m. Eastern this afternoon, special live coverage when all of this happens. When the partial eclipse begins, we're going to be with you for totality moments all along the path. Andrew Nichols will be part of things with me. He'll be live from the roof of the CBC building in Toronto, telling us about partial solar eclipse and what he's experiencing there. We hope wherever you are, you experience the eclipse in Canada, wherever you get CBC News.
Here that it's going to be a partial eclipse for most of the country, and the closer you are to that line of path of totality, the more the sun will be covered by the moon. So Saskatoon, about 45% of the sun will be covered by the moon. Timmins, 84%, but it's that path of totality that is where you get the full pomp and the full circumstance. All right, 11 degrees in Toronto today. 99.9 of the sun will get covered by the moon, but that last 0.1% means everything. You would not get a corona in Toronto, even if you had the clear skies. 17 in Montreal, good viewing. Winnipeg, you've got some cloud cover, 11 degrees, but we think the best viewing will be likely just east of Montreal into New Brunswick. So Fredericton towards, say, Sherbrooke, that looks really good. But in the blue, eastern New Brunswick and Prince County PEI, as well as southwestern Ontario, right along the shores, the southwestern shores of Lake Erie, you've got clearing skies after some cloud and rain showers this morning. The tricky spots, that's going to be around, from Niagara and Hamilton towards Kingston and across Newfoundland as well, because of 2 separate areas of low pressure. Now, timing out these the clouds and the height of the clouds, that's no easy task, but we are looking at just very scattered light rain showers. Not even all of this is hitting the ground, but we're going to stop it right around 3 o'clock, clearing in the southwest, but again, from Hamilton and Niagara towards Kingston and Cornwall, we still see some clouds, maybe a few sunny breaks within that, with gradual clearing behind it. So it's not a write-off, but it just won't be 100% perfect. It'll likely be much clearer as you move further east, though.
this is a once-in-a-lifetime profound event that you want to be a part of.
For the eclipse to come to us this is our one and only chance.
What is it about a total solar eclipse that has captivated humanity, that inspires awe, fear, and wonder?
You cannot prepare yourself for how intensely cosmic it is.
The moment the sky darkens and the sun's brilliance is extinguished, just for a moment by the moon's shadow. For some, a time for reverence and reflection.
It's really a miracle of our universe.
To witness, it might take your breath away. Millions are within the path of totality, so whether you'll be beneath the moon's shadow or experiencing this remarkable event with us at CBC, we've got you covered. So strap in as we bring you a full day of special live coverage of the eclipse in Canada. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox, and yes, our live special coverage from Niagara Falls this morning for this eclipse day in Canada. You know, this is already home to one of the natural wonders of the world. Would you look at these pictures? They are spectacular. So it's the perfect backdrop to experience another natural wonder, a total solar eclipse. Not just spectacular, but so rare there hasn't been one on Canadian soil since 1979, and we won't see one again until 2044. This time, all of Canada will get to witness at least a partial solar eclipse this afternoon. And if the weather cooperates, and hope springs eternal here in Niagara Falls, and if you're lucky enough to be in the path of totality, you are in for the show of a lifetime. Let's show you where this is going to play out in Canada. Our first glimpse of totality just after 3 p.m. Eastern. The eclipse is going to move the path and the moon's shadow all the way up across Lake Erie into Pelee Island, the first place to see this, the southernmost point in Canada. And then you can see the path there, Kingsville and Niagara Falls, where I am, then all through Montreal, Charlottetown, Gander, Newfoundland is the last place on Canada before it heads out to sea. And all along that path, we have reporters and guests planned to bring you all of the coverage you want today, and so you can experience fully the eclipse with us. Now, there's a real center of gravity feel here in Niagara Falls, a real pull to tourists to come and visit and to experience totality here. Katie Nicholson has been with us through the morning. Katie, I want to let you introduce the guests that you have, because if I just turn right over this way, I can wave at you and your guests and say hello. They were here really, really early this morning. Hello. Really, they got one of the best spots, I think, for today.
Absolutely. So I want to introduce you to Tim and Maurizio, and they have been here pretty much since, 6 a.m.? 6 a.m. They came all the way from Virginia.
Yes.
How long a drive was that, guys?
About 8 hours.
8 hours. And they are set up. There is furniture here. There's a table, chairs. Can you guys just walk me through all of the essential gear that you felt that you needed to pack here?
All right, so we brought everything we wanted to think of for the eclipse. We've got a telescope. We've got filters for the telescope.
So you can see it during.
So we can look at the eclipse while it's there. We've got binoculars.
Now these binoculars, Heather, this is amazing. Tim fashioned these himself. Just to walk me through it.
Yes, so I took basically the same material here, eclipse glass material, and I made little filters for them so we can use the binoculars during the eclipse as well to look at it. So it looks basically the same thing as eclipse glasses. And we also have a pinhole projector. So this is, if you have a bunch of little holes, then that'll project the eclipse onto the ground or onto a surface, so we can see that as well. And then, of course, we brought all the essential supplies, chips, food, games, everything we think of, because we're just going to camp out all day.
And you guys have been here, and it's a little cold, it's damp in the mist. Where are the people who are supposed to be in all the other seats here?
Hopefully getting us coffee right now.
Right, they are getting us coffee. They may run just any moment here. The girls, we have to. The reason we're here are girls' best friends. They go to the same school, and he's of the friendship. He's the science one, the science guy. So he obviously put all this together. But I mean, we're looking forward to hear this beautiful scenery and, with the experience and see how these girls are going to experience this amazing event.
You were telling me earlier, this is really about sharing this with your daughters.
Yes. Yeah. Really want to show them.
Hopefully you get a good view. If not, are you going to be okay with that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's still wonderful. Yeah, it's great.
All right. Well, hopefully we do get a great shot, and if not, you can maybe hopefully get a shot at CBC. We'll be showing it. Also NASA, lots of people are going to be showing it, so thank you so much. So Heather, tons of people are doing this up and down here, sort of braving the early morning cold, and they are planting themselves here, and they have taken the advice of police and emergency services. They have planned ahead. They do have food and water and sort of creature comforts that people are telling you don't depend on us for that. Make sure you have a solid plan in place so you have everything you need when you come.
Well, can you just tell us a little bit more about that, Katie? Because those gentlemen, just fantastic, but obviously safety is top of mind with them. They have their glasses, as I do, as you do, I know, because that's first and foremost what we're concerned about today. But as they sort of you saw the food, they're all set. This is exactly what officials have been advising. They've had months to get ready for this event. They knew when it was coming. They knew there were going to be big crowds. What are the plans in place here in Niagara Falls?
There has been almost 2 years of contingency planning here, plans to shut down some roads and make sure that there are emergency routes that are still going to be available that they can open up really quickly. There are extra police here. There is extra staging areas. There are all kinds of paramedics who are going to be moving around the larger pedestrian mall areas. All of this to make sure that people are safe and throughout the region, not just in Niagara Falls, because of course we know that the roads can get very quickly congested in this region, and so that is all factored into the planning. Orange has as well a helicopter staging. Part of their aircraft is actually closer to the Niagara region today for this event. And the mayor has been sort of at the forefront of all of this. I know you spoke with him earlier today, and he really feels like it's go time right now. They've done everything they can to try and set things up as best they can, not knowing, of course, how many people are actually going to end up here. Here's the mayor.
RCMP, OPP, Niagara Regional, Niagara Parks Police. We've got ambulance, we've got fire, emergency operations centers all over the region. We've got all portable setups. We've got porta potties. We have everything set up just in case there's gridlock and we can't get to people. We've got our road closure plans. We have so many hands on deck. It's all hands on deck approach to make sure A, it's safe, and B, it's fun and educational.
And so, Heather, we'll see now exactly how many people in the coming hours have made this game day decision to come here. We already know there's at least 14,000 hotel rooms that were pre-booked leading up to this day.
Listen, we were lucky to get one, weren't we, Katie? So thank you for that. I'll look forward to speaking to you again this afternoon. Katie and I, both part of the special afternoon coverage here from Niagara Falls. Katie Nicholson, thank you very much. You heard Mayor Diodati say fun and educational. Okay, they're taking care of the fun part. I'm going to take care of the educational part. Daniel Li Ying is back with me from Astronomy in Action. You have props. Yes. So let's jump right into these. Okay, when we see totality and when we see the eclipse this afternoon, these are things to watch for.
Yes. So especially along the East Coast and through Quebec as well.
Okay, I'll hold up.
Where they might get beautiful, clear weather. When just the moments just before totality, what might happen is if you're think Christmas colors. So if you're wearing maybe a red shirt, and maybe you've got something like green or cyan or blue, what will happen is the last few moments, the brightness level will dip and it'll go from kind of like the skies that we see with the gray, and it's going to drop to like twilight.
Okay.
And so when that happens, all of a sudden the back of your eyes, you have cones and you have rods. So those cones are responsible for colors like red, green, blue, and they are good at perceiving all the colors of the spectrum. The rods are more adapted to low light conditions and detail, so that's where you see the grays and the blacks when it gets dark.
Right.
But because it happens so fast when it drops in brightness level, the cones and the rods are both firing at the same time, and it's going through the fibers to your brain and causing it to your brain to mute out the reds, and then it causes the greens and the blues and the cyans to pop.
That's
Yeah.
called, is that the Purkinje?
That's a Purkinje effect.
See, I've been studying to talk to you. The Purkinje effect. So so where that may be this afternoon.
Yes.
I feel like I'm your game show host model. Okay. The other thing is you brought in is this.
Yes. And the reason why I brought this, and so this effect and this next effect we're going to talk about, these are effects that you're going to experience. They don't pick up well on cameras, so don't try to take a picture of the event. Be part of the event. Experience it. So at the final moments, when that last sliver of sunlight is visible just before the moon blocks it out, you're going to get something happening on the ground. So take a look at the ground. Look at your surroundings around you. On the ground, so if you have a clear, neutral, or light surface, what will happen is you'll start to see these shadow bands.
Shadow bands.
Shadow bands. So it's going to almost look like, kind of like ripples that you see in the water when the sunlight hits off of it, but it's going to be little sunlight. So it's going to almost look like gray slithering snakes, right? So it's going to be a cool effect, right? Silvery.
This is kind of elusive to some people. Really want to experience the shadow bands.
Absolutely.
So we'll see what happens. Daniel, I'm going to leave it at that for now, but thank you for all of that. I really appreciate it. I want to bring in Chris and all of that. People, sort of have down 1 or 2 or 3 total solar eclipses, Chris, and they try to get to the shadow bands because it is kind of hard to pick up. I've never even asked you, how many have you seen, if any?
This will be my first of that to this close to a total eclipse, Heather. I remember other ones in the past, but nothing that reproaches this hype, that's for sure.
No, it's very much eclipse mania with hundreds of millions of people all across North America, either being in partial or total area. It's really quite a level of excitement, isn't it? But I can tell you that here, it's still pretty cloudy. It is warming up a little bit, but it's looking a little dicey at this moment. What is the latest cloud forecast for here and along the path, Chris?
Okay, Heather, great question. Well, a little earlier on, it was that kind of a situation down in southwestern Ontario, but we're starting to see some clearing there. So there will be some clearing. The question is, what time will this happen? And by the way, Toronto, although not in the path of totality, just outside of it, in fact, 99.9%, that starts at 2:04, it'll end at 4:31. That's when the whole eclipse thing happens with the max at 3:20. Niagara Falls, of course, you are in it, and it's around 3:19. Montreal, you are in it, close to 3:30. But again, the whole thing lasts over 2 hours. But the cloud cover is still over much of south central Ontario. Now, let's stop it right around 3 o'clock. So that's when, well into the things. You should still see the moon shadow. You could still see some pretty spectacular cloud colors, especially as we get towards totality. But by 4 p.m., we are seeing some more breaks. So will those holes in the clouds arrive in time? That's still, this is going down to the wire, really. Southeastern Ontario still mostly cloudy, perhaps a few sunny breaks. As you go east of Montreal, you are going to enjoy likely ideal conditions right into much of New Brunswick as well. Just some passing clouds in Prince County, PEI, and into eastern New Brunswick. Otherwise, this is a nice looking forecast for you. And by the way, Miramichi, the peak is 4:35 p.m. local time. Summerside, PEI, 4:37 again. But it starts near 3:30, ends around 5:43. And in Gander, where we are expecting some cloud cover for sure, the max is 5:14 local time. So big spectacle, Heather, and it is going to be a partial eclipse, at least for most of the country, of course, weather dependent. And on the West Coast, that's where we think the lion's share of the rain will fall today.
That's a really important reminder, Chris, that for the vast majority of the country, there will be at least a partial solar eclipse. And so we'll share in this experience together. Thank you for that. And we'll be live in Gander later today, as a matter of fact, as part of our special coverage just before the eclipse heads out to the ocean. Thank you, Chris Murphy. I want to bring in Marianne once again. She's in Toronto in our studio to tell us more about what else is happening in the news on this Monday morning. Good morning, Marianne.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, eclipse talk dominating a lot of conversation, but of course, other big stories we're also following today, including the latest out of Gaza. Israel has withdrawn nearly all of its ground forces from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. It is estimated that nearly all of the buildings in the city were destroyed or damaged during the 6 months of intense fighting there. The Israeli military says the pulled troops will be deployed to new battlefronts, particularly in and around the city of Rafah. The public inquiry into foreign interference in Canadian elections will hear from the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor today. Natalie Drouin will begin her testimony this morning. Vincent Rigby, who held the post from 2020 to 2021, will testify this afternoon. The Prime Minister himself, Justin Trudeau, is set to address the inquiry on Wednesday. Those are the other stories making news this Monday. Heather, I'll send it back to you in Niagara Falls.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Appreciate all the coverage today. And as we continue with the coverage of the eclipse in Canada, we have reporters and guests who are getting set to watch history unfold with you as it's going to unfold all across North America today. The first time this century, all 3 countries in North America are experiencing it. You see where it begins in Mazatlan and then all the way up through 13 states into our country and out in Gander, as Chris was just saying. We're with you for the next hour or 45 minutes, and then this afternoon, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, special coverage for 3 hours. I'll be here in Niagara Falls. Andrew Nichols will be live from the roof of the CBC building in Toronto. Toronto's going to get 99% coverage, so he'll be part of the partial solar eclipse experience that you may be facing as well. Wherever you are, whatever your degree of coverage of the sun, you can join us wherever you get CBC News. Want to thank all of you for sending in notes so far today. As we look at Niagara Falls, of course, eagerly expecting and anticipating totality. What are your plans? Well, Bernice Gillis writes she's 80 years and 6 months to the day and feeling very privileged to witness this great event. She writes it feels really special and the excitement of it all. She has her glasses. Excellent, Bernice. You need those. Everyone does. Just enjoying the day. And this is a really nice part. After double open heart surgery 5 years ago, I feel lucky to be here. You enjoy every moment, Bernice. Stephanie Louris, her husband, and Stephanie off to Montreal today from the Laurentians to take in the big event. The south part of Montreal is part of Totality Delay. And she also wants us to know what's on her Eclipse playlist. Waiting for the Sun by the Jayhawks. Her husband, Gary, is the lead singer. He wrote the song. Gary, this is your day. And we have to share this photo as well because these were 2 people we saw yesterday. You can see the difference in the weather. Ryan, the dad, and Will. Will's 9. And look at that. He was there in this incredible silver spacesuit and space hats. They were all dressed up for today. Very excited to see Jeremy Hansen, our Canadian astronaut. And in fact, coming up in just a couple of minutes, you'll hear more of my interview with him yesterday. You are watching CBC Morning Live. We talked about his personal expectations, but then we talked about some of the science. Very excited about the things that NASA is doing today. So let's listen to some more of my conversation. Your fellow astronauts, there are 7 of them who'll be viewing the eclipse from 400 kilometers up in the International Space Station. They must be getting a spectacular view.
So it'd be neat to hear what they see from their perspective, because the best windows on the space station actually look down on the Earth. And so they will be able to see the shadow of the moon moving across the Earth. I think that'll be a really unique perspective. And so I don't think they're going to be looking at the sun like we are with our glasses. I think they're actually going to be transfixed on the planet and what that looks like as they pass over it.
There must be so many extraordinary moments from the ISS, but this would have to be extra special. And I was thinking how many advances in technology and imaging since 2017, the last American eclipse. We might be getting some really spectacular images from them.
Yeah, we're always sending up the latest camera technology, and in fact, some new ones were just unpacked in the last few weeks, so absolutely might get some neat photos.
The other thing I'm wondering about, NASA is putting up some fascinating experiments this time for the eclipse. And are there any that are of particular interest to you?
Well, one of the things that I thought was cool is that we have this special airplane in Houston where we fly the T-38 jets for our training. They're WB-57s. They can fly really, really high and carry payloads, and they have special cameras that they're going to be looking at the sun and chasing it as long as they can, staying in that total eclipse. They have some sounding rockets, so these are rockets you launch. I think they're launching out of Virginia, and they're going to go up just before eclipse, during, and after to see how the Earth's ionosphere changes. That's kind of the atmosphere around our planet. So there's some really cool things that they can do.
I knew you were going to say the WB-57s because as a fighter pilot yourself, I thought that would be particularly interesting to fly that high and to do those research experiments. We were talking earlier about how there seems to be a really great level of interest in this eclipse in particular, but do you think it's an opportunity to foster an interest in space and astronomy in general right now?
Yes, absolutely, and science. Just this understanding that science serves us as humanity. I like to kind of ponder, what are the people that saw this thousands of years ago, what were they thinking when they saw an eclipse like this? They wouldn't have understood what we understand today. And so science has brought us to this point where we understand how the planets are moving, how we're orbiting the sun, how the moon orbits the Earth. And I think that's really neat to look at how science has served us over this time period, and just to embrace science as part of our future. I think as we eclipse 8 billion people, we really need science we all need to get on the same page if we're going to move forward as a unified humanity and tackle the big problems that face us on the planet.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's so great to see you again.
It's my
pleasure.
pleasure.
Enjoy the eclipse.
I certainly will. You too.
Jeremy Hansen, we had some wonderful time with him yesterday, and again, his mission coming up, Artemis 2, it's been pushed back to September the 2025 at the earliest, but he's comfortable with that. Of course, safety first, and they're working out some things yet, but very excited. The training is intense, and it continues, and he's here in Niagara Falls, New York, on the American side with NASA, taking part in the NASA television broadcast and also doing some public speaking. So really pleased to have some more time with him again. He talked about how science is learning so much more about our universe now that we have, new improvements in equipment and technology, and we understand things so much better, and how exciting the future is. I want to bring back again someone who may well be part of that future because he's interested in a career in space. You've met him many times now on the show. Alfie Chang is with us. Alfie is here, and Alfie did not travel alone. Alfie brought Ava. Hello. Hi, Ava. Hi. 10-year-old sister. What compared to Big Brother? Who's got the bigger interest in science?
I think
he does, but you like it too?
Yeah.
They are here with Mom and Dad, who are just out of the shot, to experience your very first total solar eclipse. Tell me how, I'll come to you in a second, but tell me, we talked on Friday about it, thinking about the weekend, and it's here today, and how are you feeling about things?
We're absolutely excited. I really look forward to, just kind of like going with the flow, seeing how it's going to turn out. Right now there's a blanket of clouds. It's going to be a bit cloudy, but I look forward to it, and we're just going to make the best of what we have.
Whatever comes.
Yep.
Okay, what are your expectations?
I'm just hoping I can actually see it.
I know, it's kind of
so
rotten
rare.
that it's cloudy, isn't
Yeah.
it? It is so rare, isn't it? What have you been learning about it before you came here?
I just learned that it's when the moon comes in between the Earth and the sun, causing a shadow.
That's right.
To go
on the Earth.
Yeah.
And then we chase the moon's shadow and that little path that takes us all around. And you're going to be standing right in the path path of totality. And it's a very rare thing. What do you think? Have you been thinking about what it's going to be like when the day turns to night and it gets really dark here?
I'm not going to really be used to it because it's going to be really quick. But I'm just hoping it's going to be works out and yeah.
I think, because you were telling me that you're interested in knowing what happens to the animals and the birds. What are you thinking about that?
I'm thinking we might see a little bit of vegetation, especially the flowers and also close up. I'm thinking there's a lot of animals out here right now, and a lot of pets. I'm starting to think the dogs might start barking, the birds might start chirping, crickets might start chirping as well. I think overall it would be very exciting.
It could be interesting. Here, just behind us, we've been visited by gulls all morning, and they've been really loud all morning, and I was wondering whether they might go silent. That might be really interesting. It might be interesting. So in terms of the sky, Alfie really, he knows his astronomy very well, doesn't he? What are you looking for? What are you going to be trying to observe?
I'm just going to try to observe the different stages of totality. So I know it's going to last 2 hours. We're going to only have about 3.5 minutes of totality. I'm going to look for those different stages. For instance, the first phases. It's going to be very similar to how we have phases of the moon. So we're going to get a crescent sun and a half sun, but eventually it's going to come fully cover it. And then we're going to get the diamond ringed effect, which is basically the last bit of sunlight bursting over the moon. And then it's finally going to cover it up, and then we're going to be able to see the sun's corona shining around the moon.
That's going to be, everyone wants to see the corona. Do you have talks about this over the dinner table? Does he tell you what to expect? You've been chatting about this at home? I bet you have. Because the interesting thing is on Friday when Alfie was in with me in studio, you were kind of deciding what gear to take. Were you going to do a video? Were you going to take pictures? What did you decide? Where did you land?
I'm just decided I'm going to take just photos of totality.
Okay.
Because it's going to be the safest point of taking the pictures. That's when it's going to be safest because if camera lenses are funny, they're designed after your eyes. So if you can look at it with your eyes, then you can definitely take the pictures with your camera, and I think that's going to be the best.
As long as you have a solar filter. As long as you have a solar filter. There was one saying I learned, and this is your first one, obviously. You should watch your first and photograph your second. So don't forget to take it all in. You don't want to be so worried about taking pictures, I think. You want to watch it. Now, do you need any of these, or do you okay?
No, we already have.
Because do you want to make a safety message to everybody?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what do you do?
Make sure to wear your solar eclipse glasses.
That's exactly right. Look at the pair I have. I've got an extra special pair, but I have some of those too. Do you have some of these?
Yeah.
So you're going to be wearing them all the time until those moments of totality, but if you're not in totality, you have to wear it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're ready to do that. Now, what's in that little package? What did you bring?
Me and Ophi, we worked together to make a microbit.
A microbit?
Yeah.
This is for me?
Yeah.
A prezi?
Yeah.
Shall I open it?
Sure, if you want.
Bonjour. Bonjour to you. This is the best. No one's ever brought me a present on air. A microbit? Wow, now look at that. What do I do with that?
Decoded, so you just need to insert the battery. And
Okay. Okay, hold on. Look at this great gift I got. A microbit. Tell me what it'll do. Okay, so, all right. Here it is in all the parts. And then does it look like that? Show that up, Ava. And then what will I do with this?
So basically, you just need to press the A and B button. And
Okay.
It should display the message.
Did you send me a message? Did you put what you haven't put one?
There's a message already.
Oh.
It'll show word by word because the screen's not super.
Okay, what's the message?
Totality, April 8th, 2024. And then
That is the best. You are the best. I love you guys, Alfie, Chan, and Ava. Thank you so very much. Now, maybe if it's not too big a crowd, I'm going to be on this afternoon too. Would you come back and tell me what you think about it? Because everybody who sees an eclipse, and I've never seen one either, they talk about being really filled with awe and wonder, and it can be pretty powerful to experience for the first time. So I'd be interested in knowing what your reactions are. Okay, I'll see you soon, and I see you soon. I'm so glad to meet you too. I love the Chan family. Alfie and Ava, thank you. Special guests here on CBC Morning Live.
5 segundos.
We know how people react to a solar eclipse, that magical moment of totality, total darkness. But what about animals?
We know very little about animal behavior during eclipses.
What researchers do know comes from a study done at a U.S. zoo during the total eclipse of 2017.
Some animals also reacted with what we interpret as anxiety, and some of them did start galloping during totality.
Others barely seemed to notice, like the grizzly bears.
And they were just sleeping in the sun, and they couldn't be bothered by the eclipse.
And then there's what the Galapagos tortoises got up to.
They literally started like breeding behaviors in front of us, which was crazy.
The researchers behind that last study are doing it again for this eclipse. You can go to Solar Eclipse Safari to sign up and share your observations too.
Displaced Palestinians have returned to a ruined wasteland in Han Yunis after Israel withdrew most of its troops from the area. It's estimated that more than 90% of the buildings in the city were damaged or destroyed in 6 months of fighting. Israel pulled nearly all of its ground forces from Han Yunis to prepare them for a new battlefront in Rafah. I'm Marianne Demain, also making news this Monday morning. A new warning about a potential for nuclear disaster at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant. The International Atomic Energy Agency issued the warning after a drone strike on the facility on Sunday. Russia accused Ukraine of launching the attack, which left 3 people injured. Ukraine has denied its involvement. The Zaporizhzhia plant, which is the largest nuclear facility in Europe, has been in Russian hands since the opening stage of the war. Stay with us for all of the latest developments right here on CBC News Network.
witness a natural wonder of the world. Now, a few minutes ago, you were listening to my conversation with Jeremy Hansen, and I asked him about the NASA experiments and which ones were of particular interest to him. And of course, for any fighter jet pilot, one of the things that they're doing with NASA's planes, the WB-57 jets, the high-altitude jet planes, is part of the research for today. And I'm particularly excited to tell you about that because the principal investigator behind that experiment is with me now. Amir Caspi is a solar physicist. He's based at the Southwest Research Institute in Boulder, Colorado. He's in Cotton Bowl Stadium in Dallas this morning, just outside, because this is where it's all going to happen during the Path of Totality. I'm delighted to meet you. Welcome to our program, Professor.
Thanks so much. I'm very glad to be here. I apologize for any background noise here in the field.
No problem at all. Listen, the day is here. All the preparations, all the work, all of the study that you and your team have done to lead up to this day, Eclipse Day. It's finally here. How are you feeling this morning?
You know, I'm both excited and also a little terrified. You know, for those of us here on the ground, you can see behind me, the sky is not the right color for seeing an eclipse today right now, but I'm hoping that the forecast clears up and that we'll be able to see the sky from the ground. But thankfully, NASA's WB-57 airplanes are going to be above all of that weather, and hopefully they'll be able to get the clearest shots on the planet.
You know, you heard me reference our astronaut, Jeremy Hansen. He immediately went to that experiment because he's a fighter pilot himself. So we talked this morning earlier about the WB-57s. This is called Chasing the Eclipse 2, and this is your experiment on board one of these planes that we're looking at right now. Tell us what you're going to be doing with this team, Professor.
So I have been selected by NASA, along with 2 other experiments run by other researchers, to fly on NASA's WB-57 jets. These are jets that fly at altitudes of 50,000 feet or more, and that means that they can get above 90% of the atmosphere and almost 100% of the water vapor. They have special telescopes outfitted in the nose cones. My experiment, which is an instrument built by the SciFly team at NASA Langley Research Center, has a suite of cameras on it that measure the sun in infrared light, which is very difficult to see from the ground because our atmosphere will absorb that infrared and also emit that infrared. There are 2 other experiments, one of which is measuring ultraviolet light, also blocked by the atmosphere, and another one which is measuring the response of Earth's ionosphere, which is this charged layer in Earth's atmosphere, to see how it responds to the eclipse.
So can we just come back to you for just a second? I should make sure that people know you're a real pioneer in this field. Back in 2017, the last U.S. eclipse, you were the first to adapt planes, research planes, in this way to study an eclipse. So we're 7 years later. The advances that I'm sure that you've been a part of in technology and imaging, how is that going to make things even more sophisticated for you this time round?
Sure. Well, back in 2017 was the first time that the WB-57s were used. There have been other research planes used, of course, but the WBs, 2017 was their first eclipse. And we learned a lot of really interesting stuff about the infrared emission from the corona that opened a lot of doors and also caused us to ask some new questions. So this year, we're flying that new instrument from the SciFly team, which has a suite of cameras that's looking at the sun in visible light, which is the kind of light we see with our eyeballs. It's looking at the near infrared, which is the infrared just close to the visible light, all the way down to what we call the mid-wave infrared, which you cannot see from the ground because it's blocked by the atmosphere. And what we hope to learn is why different structures are emitting that mid-wave infrared in different ways.
I want to make sure we spend time on your other project, and that is Citizen Kate 2024. That's Kate with a C, Citizen Continental America Telescopic Eclipse. Again, what does that project involve, Professor?
That is an amazing project that has 35 teams of volunteers. They're students, they're teachers, they are youth groups, retirees, people who are not professional scientists. And we have given them telescopes, cameras, mounts, computers, everything they need, along with training, so that they can observe the total solar eclipse all along the path from Eagle Pass in Texas all the way up to Holton in Maine. And they're going to be looking at the sun in polarized white light. So if you're familiar with these are polarized glasses. It's basically like having polarized sunglasses in front of your camera. And we're going to be learning about the three-dimensional structure of the corona and hopefully figuring out things like why the corona is so much hotter than the solar surface.
You know, the amount of citizen scientist participation in this eclipse is quite impressive. I think that's a whole new aspect to this time round. But basically what I have been thinking about, Professor, is that during totality, where you are in Texas and all the way up to where I am in Canada, what happens in those few minutes, the amount of science going to be done this time, the amount that we are going to learn today, it's kind of mind-blowing to me. What's your perspective on it?
It is. Both NASA and the National Science Foundation and other government agencies here in the United States have funded dozens of projects to study this eclipse, including professional science as well as a lot of citizen science or participatory science. There are so many people that are engaging with this eclipse doing professional science to try to understand anything from why the sun's corona, the outermost atmosphere, is hotter than the surface, how the solar wind, which is a constant stream of charged particles coming off the sun, how that is born and starts at the sun, all the way to things like how Earth's atmosphere and ionosphere react, and even how animals behave in response to the eclipse. All of these things are professional quality science, whether they're done by professionals or done by our citizen science volunteers. And I really can't wait to see all of the amazing results that come out of this experiment.
I'm with you, and if I weren't wearing such a thick, puffy jacket, you'd see the goosebumps at the excitement of the science that we're going to get today. Professor Caspi, thank you so much. You're right there in front of the Cotton Bowl. NASA's hosting an event called The Sun, Moon, and You, and it's going to be very exciting. You are right in the center of it all. Thank you for the time today. And you are watching special eclipse coverage on CBC Morning Live. be the reaction from the animals, from the birds. And if you want to study that in Canada, there is no better place to go than Point Pelee National Park. That's where Chris Ensing is this morning. Would you explain that statement for me, Chris, as I say good morning to you today?
Yes, good morning, Heather. You nailed it. This is an oasis, and it's coming up on the time when we have a festival of flight. This is when birds from all over start their migration habits, and it also means people as well. So it's not uncommon to see a scene like this time of year behind us. Big lineups at Point Pelee National Park, the southernmost tip of mainland Canada. But the difference is today they're not here for the birds, they're here for the moon, and they're trying to pay attention to totality. Here in southwestern Ontario, we have the beautiful privilege of being the first people to see this eclipse, to have it hit us when it comes this afternoon. But we also have what some are saying the right type of weather. We've been talking to people who are in this lineup. You can look up and down, and we'll pan over that way to show you how deep it is, who have come from as far away as an hour into Michigan, saying they weren't going to go to Ohio because they wanted to come to Canada to experience this, but also from Toronto. So people who are driving right past you, Heather, in Niagara there, to come over here, and they say it's because they looked at the forecast this morning and just thought that this was the place to be. So this might be sort of a hidden gem of the eclipse. We're going to see it first. It'll last for a couple minutes like most places, but that totality experience might be cloud-free, which was enough for some people to hit the highway and choose Leamington, Windsor, Essex as their space to be for this big event.
You know, I wondered that. It's spectacular here, but the weather doesn't look so promising, and Chris Murphy's been saying the cloud may continue, so no wonder they're with you for all sorts of reasons. You know, I was thinking how good it would be to be on Pelee Island, Chris, the very first place to see the eclipse arrive, to be on that southernmost point. Fish Point, of course, you can't get a ticket across on the ferry today. They're all sold out. So you're in an excellent location, and I know you've been talking to some veteran eclipse watchers. They're there too. What are they saying about seeing their first eclipse in Canada?
Well, Heather, the reason you can't get that trip on the ferry is because we just talked to the guy who booked one of the last tickets walking across. He's been watching these eclipses and tracking them throughout his life. He's already been to, this will be number 4 for him, and travels all across North America to see these, to make sure that he experiences them in person. He woke up in London this morning, hit the highway to come here, walk on to that ferry, and he'll go to Pelee Island, like you mentioned, one of those oases that we have out here where they're going to see something special, and that's going to be that first hit of the eclipse. He told me about what it is like to feel like that in the moment, about it being really a physical experience that he before it is happy to experience now.
Corona is not the same from eclipse to eclipse. It really is a surprise around each corner, so to speak. And so I'll be looking at the corona and the solar prominences, these flares, these red flares that shoot out, they're hundreds of thousands of miles long. And they're spectacular to see too. And you can only see them when the disk of the moon entirely covers the surface of the sun.
Just the joy that people have here. Listen to some people inside of this car. It's almost like it's their birthday today, saying that they had this circled on the calendar. We're so excited to find the way to watch this. They needed to pick a place, and a lot of them are choosing to come here to Windsor, Essex, Leamington, and the national park behind me here.
I can't blame them for all sorts of reasons, as I said, and they will be, and you will be, Chris, the very first in Canada since 1979 to have this experience of a total solar eclipse. I'll speak to you this afternoon, Chris. Really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
wanting to hear what's on yours, you're welcome to send it to us morning live at CBC.ca. Whatever you're listening to as you take in the eclipse, safety, safety, safety. Make sure you have those protective glasses on and the solar filters if you're taking pictures. So, Chris, just before we go with you this morning, you said you had 2 more to add to your eclipse playlist.
Yes.
What are they? I don't want to miss them.
Okay, Blinded by the Light, either Bruce Springsteen or Manfred Mann. And the other one would be, yes, how about Bad Moon Rising by CCR, an oldie but a goodie for sure.
CCR. That's a really good one. I'll Follow the Sun, Good Day Sunshine. We could go on and on and on, couldn't we? Oh, my goodness.
We could.
Can I say thank you so much for all of this today? You are the most important decision input, information for people making their decisions on where they're going to watch this today, Chris. So I really appreciate your being with us today.
Well, great coverage out of Niagara Falls, Heather, and yeah, certainly. The thing is, though, the whole event from the beginning to the end is about just over 2 hours. But for those of you in totality, the real special stuff is anywhere from 1 to about 3.5 minutes long. That's it. But my goodness, it's an intense minute to 3 minutes. Low pressure over northern Minnesota. This one is the one that's pulling people's hair out, forecasters specifically, because we're talking about a lot of areas, people converging on these busy areas. Now, southwestern Ontario, you started off clouds and showers, but you're seeing that gradual clearing. We do think there's going to be sunny breaks in and around the Niagara, Hamilton, Toronto area, but it's still mainly cloudy. And then mainly cloudy towards Kingston, Brockville, Cornwall. Nope, Montreal to Sherbrooke, over towards New Brunswick. Mainly clear for you. The clouds not arriving till afterwards. So there's a look at the idea of just the gradual clearing within that special zone. Into Laval, you are not in the totality, but downtown Montreal is, so if you're going to be driving down that way, expect some busy routes. And finally, across central New Brunswick and Prince County PEI, you should enjoy some good viewing conditions. And Heather,
Chris,
back to
thank you, and thank you to all of my Morning Live team. Thank you for all of the hard work to put our special broadcast together. I'm really looking forward to experiencing with you something that I've never personally experienced, a total solar eclipse, and all the things everyone says, the awe and the wonder and the sense of connection with something bigger in the universe. My goodness, what will we feel today? And of course, all the questions about what will we see, the changes on Earth, it's really going to be exciting. So I'm looking forward to coming back here in Niagara at 1 o'clock this afternoon. I'll be live for 3 hours from here. Andrew Nichols will be part of the team from Toronto. We have guests. Our reporters are going to be in position as we celebrate and come together to experience all across Canada this great eclipse. I'll see you then.
We set the alarm for 2 o'clock this morning and decided to get down here and be the first in line.
We left mid-Friday afternoon and have basically been on the road ever since, other than stopping for a few hours to sleep and get gas and food.
The biggest event in the city's history. We host a lot of events, 14 million people every year, but nothing quite like this.
I'm just really excited about the eclipse.
The Seneca were told by the peacemaker that they would see a sign in the sky, and they didn't know what that would look like. And then the story goes that they saw a black sun.
I'm just expecting something unbelievable, not imaginable, something that you can write about, but something that you have to see.
Science has brought us to this point where we understand how the planets are moving, how we're orbiting the sun, how the moon orbits the Earth, and I think that's really neat.